I want to talk about meditation for a second because there's people listening to this that have never done it before. So I just want them to start at a bit, because the thing that you say that it just is a base level thing, by writing these emotions down, you either don't want to experience or do, or the thoughts that do or don't serve you. The power in just that, everybody. Okay, I want to go back to what Joe said earlier. I just want to give you my 2 cents on this. Is you become aware of them when they reveal themselves to you. Just the awareness gives you a power over them you didn't have before. And remember what Dr. Joe said before, every time you sort of make progress on something like this, you are remaking yourself. So give yourself credit for these small wins. But the cool thing about meditation for me is it strips me of the distractions.
Exactly.
It strips me of what I see, of the kinesthetic, of the auditory. Can you talk about just that basic concept for a second?
Again, I mean, this is brilliant. This is because you're a practical guy, and so am I. So, all right, so if the word meditation means become familiar with, right?
Yes.
Then, you know, people say, oh, well, you shouldn't focus on the negative. Well, really? That's 95% of who you are. And you got to begin to dismantle or denature that old personality. And that means you're going to have to come up against the cravings that the body has emotionally. You know, like it's 8 o'clock in the morning and you're doing your meditation, you're normally in traffic and you want to get angry and your body's going, hey, you're off schedule. So let me just find something that's mapped in the brain that I'll bring up a past experience why you can feel a little anger. Well, now once you become aware of that, now the game is on, right?
Yes.
Because now you're working to become conscious of that and not go unconscious again. And it takes an incredible amount of awareness.
Yes.
It takes a great amount of consciousness, and you can't have consciousness without energy. So you got to raise your energy in order to get to it. Otherwise, you're going to be consumed.
Yes.
You're going to return back, right? So if you start becoming familiar, so conscious of those unconscious thoughts, they would never slip by your mind unchecked by you. Now, that is when you really catch yourself, right? And the research shows that you can get better at this. You could actually sense the thought before it comes. So then you start firing and wiring new thoughts. You start thinking to yourself, who am I going to be when I open my eyes? Well, how am I going to make a difference in the world today? Who am I going to be? How am I going to love? How am I going to give? How am I going to serve? How am I going to contribute? What things do I want to really do today? And in the act of closing your eyes and just thinking about and rehearsing what you're going to do, your brain doesn't know the difference. And if you get caught up in it, you begin to install the neurological hardware in your brain to look like you've already done it. Now the brain's no longer a record of the past. Now it's a map to the future. You are priming your brain, and if you keep doing it, the hardware will become a software program. You know what that means? You just might start acting like a happy person. Well, there's no surprise there. You installed the circuits. Stress hormones arouse the body, so you have your attention on your body. Stress hormones alert the brain, so you're aware of everything in your environment, like an octopus with tentacles in all different directions. You got to control and predict everything in your life. And if you're living by the hormones of stress, you're always investing your attention and energy into the known future based on the past. So you're on a line of time here, in a timeline. So then, let's think about it. How are you going to make thought more real than anything else? How are you going to create from thought? Well, let's close our eyes. Let's disconnect from the environment. Less sensory information coming into the brain, less distraction, as you said. Let's play some soft music in the background. Let's stick some earplugs in our ear, whatever you want to do. Diminish sensory, but now you're sitting down. You're not eating. You're not tasting. You're not smelling. You're not feeling. So there's less sensory input coming to your body. So then now your brain waves begin to change. They start slowing down, and you move from this beta brainwave pattern where you're aware that you have a body in space and time, or your attention is on the outer world, or your senses are giving you information. Less sensory information. Now your inner world starts becoming more real than the outer world, and you're not the voice in your head that's always talking to you. As your brain waves change, you start seeing in images and pictures and symbols, and less in that vocalization, that sub-vocalization. So your brainwaves start changing to alpha. You're going to start creating, start dreaming, pretending, right? So then, if you say to your body, you're going to sit down for an hour, and I know you're on a program because you wake up every morning and do the exact same thing, and now I'm going to make you sit, just like say to an animal. You sit. You stay, and your body's going to say, I'm going to die, my bladder is going to explode, I need a coffee, I got a lot of emails to do. That's the program. And you say to your body, today we do battle. Today, this is it. And you sit through that, and you make your way, even though your body's trying to get up, and you keep settling it back down. I'm telling you, when you start your day that day, you will be more kind, more loving, less judgmental, more patient, more present, because you're mastering the present moment. That means you're not in the predictable future. You're not in the familiar past. You're mastering time. And so then, if where you place your attention is where you place your energy, and all of your attention is in the present moment, you've got a lot of energy to do amazing things. And you know when someone's present with you in your life because they're paying attention to you. And you know when they're not present with you because they're not paying attention to you. So the act of getting more present means you're putting a lot of energy in the present moment, and you're taking your power back from all these things and people in your life. So we teach people this. As they start breaking through and they start being able to unfold into this field as an awareness, and they're not putting their attention on their boss or their ex or their wife or their kids or their cell phone or their WhatsApp or their Facebook, they're not thinking at all. So then, as they're sensing the space, they can't think. And if you can't think, you can't analyze. And if you can't analyze, the analytical mind is what separates the conscious mind from the subconscious. We just open the door.
Wow.
And so now you can reprogram in there, right? So then, it's so important then that of the infinite places you can put your attention, let's put it on your heart. Now, where you place your attention is where you place your energy. Why? Because we want this center to bloom. 1,400, 1,300 different chemicals that restore and regenerate the body. Let's breathe. Let's open this up. Let's practice this. Let's start learn how to lead with our heart, a different consciousness. Yeah, in the beginning, it's a little difficult, but you stay with it and you practice it, petal by petal by petal. You're placing your attention there. You're putting your own life force back into your heart. You're turning your love inward, and the body will start responding. And in a week's time, if we're doing that 3 times a day or over and over again, sooner or later, that thing's going to start blooming. And just like when your sexual organs are aroused and they're engorged with blood, this center, when you start feeling love, you make a chemical called oxytocin. Oxytocin signals nitric oxide. Nitric oxide signals a chemical called derived endothelial relaxing factor. You know what that is? It causes the arteries in your heart to literally open up. So your heart is going to be filled with blood and oxygen and nutrients. It's physiological. It's going to feel full. You're going to have a heart-on, in a sense. Your heart is going to fill, right? And when that happens, you experience a level of love that passes all understanding. Your cup runneth over. I mean, it is, and people they're sobbing because they realize that this center finally, like a child. So then, back to your question, let's demystify meditation, because it has so many stigmas around it. Close your eyes. Retreat from your life. Disconnect from your body. Disconnect from your environment. Disconnect from your schedule. And just give yourself an hour or 45 minutes or 20 minutes. Because when you invest in yourself, you invest in your future. And when you believe in yourself, you believe in possibilities. And when you believe in possibilities, you believe in yourself. And if you don't believe in possibilities, then you don't believe in yourself. And you don't believe in yourself, you don't believe in possibilities. So then, but if you have a community, a living organism, where it's becoming the new normal, and you want to join that living organism, and you want to be a part of that, and every stride you make feeds the living organism. Every stride, every effort you make to connect is amazing, because that which we are seeking is seeking us. It's not like it matches our efforts. And so then when people have that uncompromising will, the same way that they go shopping for a dress or a pair of earrings or go to the gym and work out, with the same intensity, with the same passion, come up against themselves and just say, when the body's given everything it has, it's when you say, that's all you got? That's it? That's all you're going to put out? I'm ready. And so then, when you start overcoming that, the side effect of it is that all of a sudden you're happy for no reason. And you're less seduced in believing that you need something outside of you to make you feel better. All of a sudden, you're feeling better every day without anything outside of you. And now all of a sudden, you start showing up unpredictable in your life. They're saying, that Ed guy, he's different.
He's
Man. He's
different.
on a different medication. Something's going on with it. But in actuality, you're just freer, right?
Oh
and
my
so,
gosh.
so then as we begin to remove these layers that stop the flow of the divine in us, that in essence in us, the side effect is we become more willful, we become more mindful, we become more conscious, we become more loving. It's its nature, you know.
Yes.
It becomes who we are.
I love how you explain things that everyone that's listening to this has had flickers and little moments in their life of this, and there's been a moment or two where you've had that red tie experience. There's been that moment or two where you felt bliss or energy, and now Dr. Joe's beginning to give you the formula and the recipe to do that all the time, to be that to become that person. Hey, it's Ed Mylett. I just wanted to thank you for being here, and I would ask you to please subscribe to the show. If you just click the subscribe button here, I would really appreciate it. It helps the show grow so we can get even more successful guests on the program to help you. At the same time, if you're subscribed, you're going to get access to the programs before anybody else in the world gets access to them. So if you would, click subscribe right here. Thanks so much. You have this unbelievable saying that you say, your personal reality is dictated by your personality, right?
Exactly.
And so just step back into that just for a second,
Okay.
the application of it in creativity for people. And then is it a temporary change?
Okay. Thank you for asking the question, because we also discovered that you didn't have to have those transcendental moments.
Okay.
All you had to do is work on regulating your internal state every day. And the novice meditators, people who just came to an event that really had no experience in meditation but immersed themselves for 7 days,
Okay.
our data suggests at the end of 7 days, their body completely looks like they're in a different life, a completely different environment. The science is pointing the finger at there's strong environmental changes going on in the person's biology, but they're in a ballroom.
Right.
There's not a lot of things happening in a ballroom, but
Mhm.
so then how does that happen? Okay, so the application then becomes important for everybody, because when we started looking at advanced meditators that didn't have those transcendental states, but they practiced meditation every day, there was a dosing effect. In other words, the more they self-regulated, the more they were resistant to the things in their environment. Well, let's think about that. If I say to you, Ed, why are you upset today? And you say, I'm upset because of the staff member, I'm upset because of what I heard on the news, there was traffic, I was late. What you're really saying is, my environment, some person, some condition, something in my outer world is actually having control over the way I feel and the way I think.
Right.
And so that's a subconscious program called victimization. Anything that controls you, the way you feel and the way you think, you're victim to. Now, the problem is that the majority of times our response to the environment weakens the organism.
Okay.
That means that your fear, your anger, your aggression, your
Weakens
impatience
you.
weakens the organism.
Yep, you.
So now the environment is actually causing the organism through the stress hormones and the long-term effects to really start down-regulating systems in the body, right? So then,
incredible.
So as long as you react to your environment and the response is causing you to become weakened, you're victim to your environment. Well, what makes sense then would you be more susceptible to anything in your environment because you're a victim to it. But the process of change is the difficulty is that 90% of the thoughts you think are the same thoughts you thought the day before. Nerve cells that fire together wire together. Keep firing the same thoughts, keep making the same choices, keep doing the same things, keep recreating the same experiences that stamp the same networks of neurons into the same patterns, all for the familiar feeling called you. And do that enough times, and your biology, your neurocircuitry, your neurochemistry, your hormones, your gene expression stays the same because you're the same. Okay, so then instead of sitting down trying to meditate for 10 minutes and say, then believe in the thought I can't meditate, or I don't have enough time, or I'm a really important person, or I got too many emails to answer, or it's garbage day, or it's my mother's fault, it's my ex's fault, I want to complain, I want to blame, I want to make excuses, I want to lay down, my bladder's full, I like this, what am I doing wrong? They're agitated, impatient. That's the personality that has been hardwired and conditioned emotionally into the past that's resisting the unknown. It would rather cling to suffering than take a chance in possibilities. So our events, we say, okay, here's the knowledge, and I can say now with a great degree of certainty, more than ever, that if you actually do this and you stretch yourself a little bit further than where you would normally go at home, your brain will change. And if you teach people how to do this over and over again, and no different than training an animal, the body is the animal.
Are you training the body that you're in charge? Is that what you're doing?
You're telling the body it's no longer the mind, that you're the mind.
Yes.
And when you do that, those victories add up, and then all of a sudden, there's a liberation of energy. There goes the guilt, there goes the pain, there goes the whatever. It doesn't matter if it's health, it doesn't matter if it's wealth or success, it doesn't matter if it's a loving relationship, a change in a career, a mystical experience. Whatever it is, the person all of a sudden starts to relax into the present moment. Now, let's demystify the present moment.
Okay.
People wake up in the morning and they think about their problems, and those problems are memories that are etched in their brain that are connected to certain people and objects at certain times and places. The moment they wake up in the morning and they start thinking of their problems, they're thinking in the past. Okay, now every one of those problems has an emotion associated with it. So when they feel unhappy, when they feel bitter, when they feel fearful, now their body's in the past. Thoughts are the language of the brain. Feelings are the language of the body. Thought and a feeling, image and emotion, stimulus and response. You're conditioning the body to be the mind of that emotion subconsciously. Now, the body is believing it's living in the same past experience 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Why? Because the body's so objective, it doesn't know the difference between the real-life experience that's creating that emotion and the emotion that person is creating by thought alone.
Important. The body doesn't know the difference.
And so the environment signals the gene, that's epigenetics. The end product from an experience in the environment is an emotion. The person's signaling the same genes in the same way, and genes make proteins, and proteins are responsible for the structure and function of your body, and the expression of proteins is the expression of life. And now the person is actually headed for a genetic destiny. And when people labor for the present moment, and they take their attention off of their body, off of all the people in their life, all of the objects they own, their cell phone, their computer, their car, their house, they're no longer identifying with where they're sitting, where they need to be, where they live, where they've lived in the past, where they need to go. And they're not thinking about the predictable future or the familiar past. They're dissociating from everything physical and material, everything known. That is the exact moment we call getting beyond yourself. Okay? Now, when we're in that place then, at the beginning, it's uncomfortable because survival is the unknown. You have better chances of survival and running from the unknown, but that unknown is the perfect place to create from. So in the process, no different than any rehab. In our first 2 days of our event, really, people they're basically rehabbing from their emotional states and their habits, and they're sitting in the presence of that discomfort, right? And the discomfort is because the body is leaving the known. But if the body has been conditioned to be the mind, the moment you take it outside of its familiar territory, it's going to start telling you, Ed, why don't you quit? You know, you're not really good at this. You know, you're more of a physical person. You don't really want to do this. You're not very this or very that. And most people just get up when they do the meditation. They believe that thought as if it's true. Now, the question is, what's on the other side of that thought? Can you sit there long enough till that's no longer the thought you accept, believe, and surrender to? Well, then,
wow.
The next question:
other side of that thought?
What's on the other side of that familiar emotion? Can I sit and work with my body and settle it down? Stay. You stay. I'm going to feed you. You're not going to die from this. Your bladder's not going to explode. You're not going to go crazy. And you work with catching those thoughts. It's called metacognition. If you're in that 95% of programming where you're unconscious, then the first step to change is becoming conscious of your unconscious thoughts. So conscious that you would never go unconscious or let that thought slip by you unnoticed.
I want to understand. So you're saying the awareness of the thought, being conscious of the thought, has it somehow lose its power over you?
Exactly. Because just because you have a thought doesn't mean it's true. And if you're left alone to yourself, you'll start believing every thought you think. And that's the problem. So then the majority of people's thoughts then are based on what they perceive about themselves from their past or their life, right? And if you catch yourself complaining and blaming and making excuses and judging someone else, and you say, I want to be a happy person, well, a happy person would never do that, would make them unhappy. If you notice that you've been feeling guilty for the last 20 years. You didn't know it was guilt because it just felt like you. And you want to feel joy. Well, if you can't feel joy, it should tell us volumes about what you've been practicing doing, right? So then most people give up because they don't know that there's anything on the other side of it. So then the next question is, what thoughts do you want to fire and wire in your brain? Well, and with attention and with intention, if you keep practicing firing, wiring those thoughts, you start installing hardware. Do it enough times and it becomes like a software program. And now that's the new voice you program in your head that said, I can do this. I believe in myself.
And you've created, to an extent, a new personality, which can create a new personal reality.
Now, here we go. So then the next question is, how am I going to behave with my kids today? How am I going to be with my wife? How am I going to be with my partner? How am I going to be at work? How am I going to be on my Zoom calls? How am I going to be by myself? How am I going to, what does greatness look like? What would love do today? Now, it turns out that if you close your eyes and you start imagining doing that, if you rehearse how you're going to be in those certain situations, the evidence, without a doubt, shows that your brain will start to look like, through the mental rehearsal of the act, that you've already done it. Now you've installed the hardware. Keep doing it. It becomes a software program, and you'll start acting like a happy person. No magic there. If you don't have the circuits, you can't do it. So the rehearsal then is actually changing the brain just by thinking differently. The brain looks like the experience has already happened. Now you have hardware to use. Do it enough times, you get good at it. It becomes more automatic. Now here's the hard part. Can I teach my body emotionally what my future will feel like before it happens? Now this is really important because there's a pandemic going on in the world that has nothing to do with a virus. It has everything to do with people's attention span and learning. People need a rush of dopamine in order to catch their attention, or a rush of adrenaline to learn. And so that they're dependent on their outer environment to regulate their emotional state. Now, this is different now. Now, I'm going to say to you, get in that beautiful heart of yours, and I want you to feel gratitude for the event before it occurs. Well, I can't feel it because it hasn't happened yet. Yeah, that's the conditioning. That's the hypnosis. So then when you teach people how to create heart coherence and self-regulate, then it makes sense then with a coherent brain, they can hold the image of their future. They can actually then rehearse who they're going to be. They can bring up the emotions of their future. Now, here's the cool part.
Awesome.
If they can feel their gratitude before their healing begins. If they feel their abundance or their worthiness before they have their wealth, it will start generating abundance. If they start being in love with themselves and being in love with life, they'll create an equal. That's the law. If they're in awe of life or in awe of the moment, they're going to have a mystical experience. If they're empowered, they're going to start stepping towards their success. So then when we wait for the outer world to change our internal state, that's a conditioning process, because some people will live in lack and separation their entire life because they're not creating anything. When this happens, then I'll feel happy. That's the illusion of three-dimensional reality. That's cause and effect, but feeling the emotion ahead of the experience is causing an effect. So the heart, when it's coherent, tends to produce an external magnetic field that's up to 3 meters wide. Now you got a Wi-Fi signal. Now when you have a coherent brain, the brain could actually lay the information on that signal. And the thought of your wealth or your health can be carried on the frequency of that heart emotion. Emotions are the end product of an experience, right? Epigenetics says that's the environment that signals the gene. If the environment signals the gene and the end product of an experience in the environment is an emotion, that person's signaling genes ahead of the environment. And now they're biologically believing, behaving, and actually becoming that person. So if the person sustains that state, and we look at novice meditators that come for a week, and 90% of them, and the metabolites, not just a few, the majority of the metabolites and novice meditators suggest that their body's in a different life.
Great. So you're transcending your environment. People ask me all the time, why does Joe always go back to the health part of the benefit of this? I want to stay in there. And it just dawned on me, because you're a scientist. So the external stuff of attracting the relationship you want, or the money you want, or the emotion that you want, is a difficult thing to measure, isn't it? It's a difficult thing to measure. But when it becomes of one's health or well-being, it's measurable.
Right.
So, for example, you say that, and this is how powerful this is. Think about the power of this. Joe's able to tell you that he can actually measure the emotion, the repeated emotion of fear and its impact on the immune system compared to the repeated emotion of gratitude or bliss and its impact on the immune system. Right. So it's actually a measurable, tangible thing. So address that, stay on there. And then the other thing, we keep using this term heart coherence. I know there's a part of my audience going, okay, what is that? My understanding of heart coherence essentially physically means that your breathing and heart are actually in unison at one point and that you sustain that over a duration of time. Elaborate on that and go for it.
Coherence is rhythm. It's a cadence. Mm-hmm. And when you're in fear or you're in survival and your heart rate increases and your respiratory rate increases, your brain waves go up into this aroused state, right? And people spend 70% of their life anticipating the worst case scenario that's going to happen in their life and prepare for the worst. Chronic stress does what? It causes us to hold our breath. All right. So we found, in our research and working with the HeartMath Institute and also some of the stuff we've been doing, that if you slow your breathing down, you slow your brain waves down. And if you teach your body to move out of survival, there's only one other thing it wants to do. It wants to create, right? Mm-hmm. So now just imagine a big drum. And now you're so contracted that you can't hit that drum. And as you learn and teach a person how to convert from that fight or flight nervous system to the nervous system of relaxation, the heart actually starts to bloom. And when you place your attention on your heart, we have the data. I can say this emphatically. That when that heart starts to beat in rhythm, it starts to inform the brain that it's time to create. Like taking a big sheet and going like this, a wave of energy goes right to the brain. The brain goes right into alpha and says, it's safe now to create. Examine other possibilities. You're out of survival, right? Okay. So then as you hit that drum repeatedly, there's a wave of sound that's produced. And the more coherent it is, the more it can carry information, right? Okay. Or if you drop a pebble in the water and you drop another pebble in the water and drop another pebble in the water, when your heart is coherent, there's a magnetic field, right?
Do you think, Joe, that I'm just curious, I'm thinking about all the applications of stuff. You know how I'm always the application dude, right? I'm thinking of a guy I'm thinking about just a person I've watched that could embody this in some ways. Do you assume someone like a Tiger Woods or a Brady? I'm thinking okay, now I'm an athlete thinking about this. Most athletes, most people going into a boardroom to make a presentation, for example, or to ask somebody out for a date, the more stressful they perceive the environment to be, the more poorly they perform, typically. Yeah. So you can take two golfers who both hit a golf ball the exact same way. As the environment changes and the perception of the environment becomes more stressful. I'm just, right? You're nodding yes for people that are on audio. A guy like a Tiger Woods, when it's the putt to win the Masters and there's 50 billion people watching and it's for legacy, everything's slowing down for him. His heart rate is probably more regulated. He's got more heart coherence at that time, so he's in a creative state, whereas the other person's heart rate is increasing. They're a complete incoherence, and they can't create and function.
And incoherence causes you to overanalyze.
Got it.
And we've discovered this, that if you analyze anything, your life, yourself, within some disturbing emotion, you're going to make your brain worse 100% of the time. In other words, you're thinking in the past and your thoughts are arousing the brain more into that state of survival. Now, that's when we overfocus. That's when we overthink, right?
So you have the ability to do whatever you've always done the other way. If you've conditioned yourself into the state of anxiety or chaos or fear repeatedly, then you create a personality that creates those elements in your life, and then you reinforce it with your experience. Exactly. You can then do the same thing the other way.
That's my point. That's my point. So then the person's having a spontaneous love attack. Mm-hmm. They've done it enough times. Their body's going, hey, it's been about 2 hours without a little love. Well, let me just automatically do that. And so now when you feel these elevated emotions, it activates the prosocial networks in the brain. Survival creates the protective networks. Like, I don't trust you. I'm separate. You're different. I'm going to do my own thing. I'm selfish right now. It's all about me. Let's compete. Let's fight. Let's manipulate. Let's force it. Let's control it. Let's do matter trying to change matter. That's kind of the program, right?
It is.
So then the opposing part of this is that when people start to connect and they start to have these elevated states, then something really unusual happens. The reality seems to conform in ways that are equal to who they're being. So now the heart is saying to the brain, it's time to create. And now your energy has changed, and nothing changes until we change our energy. And when you change your energy, you change your life, right? And so then the idea then is to be able to maintain that modified state of mind and body your entire day. And as I said, get so good at doing it with your eyes closed that you can do with your eyes open. Now, if you can sustain that state for an extended period of time, I don't care what you want, and people have created all kinds of things. I use health as the example because it's really relatable. Now, all of a sudden, it's like you're no longer having to go and get it and do something like matter to matter to go get it. And until you arrive at that experience, you're in lack or separation until the experience happens. It takes a feeling like, oh, my God. Well, this is kind of like the opposite. This is like you're not going anywhere. Everything's coming to you. So the thought tends to have an electrical charge in the quantum field. It tends to be the directive. It sends the signal out. And the heart tends to have a magnetic field. It tends to draw the experience to us. So then if you teach people how to create from the field instead of from matter, they will shorten the distance between the thought of what they want and the experience of having it, between the cause and the effect. Now, think about three-dimensional reality. Many people can develop the skills to become successful. They can make the right choices. They can study real hard. They can practice. They can get trained. But they're going to follow certain rules of Newtonian physics. It's just going to take time to get what you want. It's just going to take time and hard work. Well, there's nothing wrong with that. You do that for a while, and sooner or later you're going to say, is there another way? Now, this is where it gets exciting. Okay. If it's not matter that's emitting the field, it's the field that's creating matter. If I can change the information in the field, I can change the expression in three-dimensional reality. So if you can teach a person to become nobody, no one, no thing, nowhere, in no time, to become pure consciousness, and disconnect and dissociate from everything physical and known in their three-dimensional reality, and we have data to say that people can do this. Now, all of a sudden, if they become aware that they can actually connect to that field with their awareness, and they're not Ed Mylett any longer, they're a consciousness, they're awareness in infinite vacuum and in emptiness in space. It would be like the illusion is the virtual reality headset. You're taking the headset off. You can't get the upgrade from inside of it. If you could have a coherent heart and a coherent brain and create from the field instead of from matter, every thought in the quantum field produces a frequency. If you can feel the frequency of that thought and you experience it, you're shortening the distance between the thought of what you want and the experience of it. And you're creating coherent patterns of energy in the field that actually change the hologram in three-dimensional reality. So for me personally, I've done a lot of the matter stuff, got really good at it, and then I just said there's got to be another way. So demystify the process. I don't care what you want. I don't care if it's a trip somewhere or a new life or a new car or whatever. People who do this, what do you think they feel when they see that first synchronicity? You think they're going to be like, oh, I don't want to meditate tomorrow. I'm going to do this. Are you kidding? The synchronicity happens and the energy, the surprise wakes the person up and they go, whatever I'm doing inside of me is producing some effect outside of me. I better pay attention to what I'm doing and keep doing it.
And every human being's had some glimpse of this at least some point in their life. The point is that this can be happening on a regular basis for you. The real irony of all of this is this idea of changing from matter to matter and then moving into a higher space where it's energy to matter. The truth is that when you get there, if we're going a little bit deeper, is that the very thing that you think you want to create in matter, you don't really need to create a matter.
because listen, when you get to, when you start connecting to those greater frequencies, you're moving closer to source. And what is source? Pure love. What is it? Oneness, wholeness, whatever you want to call that.
It's right there the whole time.
It's ineffable. It's like it's the most familiar, unfamiliar feeling you'll ever have. And we came from that place, we came from there. And so you're in an experiment called three-dimensional reality, consciousness, and the never-ending process of self-discovery, right? And so now the person who has the synchronicity, who has the coincidence, they're this is what I love about our community more than anything else. They do the work. They're not philosophers. They're not theologians. They're not academic. They are out of the bleachers and they're on the playing field. Every day they're creating. And the person who heals from their disease, they're not saying, why am I not healed? They're saying, what is it about me that I still have to change that will create the healing? This is a different experiment now. Yeah. And so now we had a guy that came in a wheelchair at an event we did recently. He came in that throne. He had ALS. He walked from the back of the room all the way to the stage, walked up the stairs out of that wheelchair on his own. I asked him, he said, I just have to work on staying in this emotional state, because the longer I stay there, the more I'm noticing that my body's responding. He's not saying why am I not healed. He understands that the only way he can actually heal is to change him, right? And so now it becomes very practical, right? It becomes very practical.
Don't you think it's important, that practical part of it? I think sometimes people think they're disqualified if they can't explain something they do well. I'm going to tell you one of the interesting things on the show. Many of the people that do things exceptionally well that have been on my show, athletes or entertainers, really don't do a very good job of explaining it. Yeah. They embody it. And I think sometimes someone listens to somebody like you who can explain this and think that they're disqualified from becoming good if they can't explain how they're doing it. Yeah. But the truth is, it's a repeated experience that becomes familiar for them without the need to express how they're doing it.
Right. Again, for me,
This is your life, is teaching people to do this and giving them the tools. But for the vast majority of people, it's creating the experience that they're going to have.
Everybody has done this at least once in their life.
Exactly.
What did they do? They sat down and they said, what would it be like to be happy? What would it be like to be healthy? What would it be like to have a new life? What would it be like to be in love? And they asked the question, instead of getting on their cell phone and texting someone or posting, they actually sat there and they actually said, let me answer the question. Let me get uncomfortable here. And what is it that I truly want? What would I have to change about myself to be healthy, to be happy, to be successful? What are my bad habits? They get busy writing down all the choices they want to make, all the things they want to do. They start writing down all their goals, all their experiences, and every goal or experience they write down in their future, there's an emotion. They get inspired, they get optimistic, they get grateful, they get energized, and those emotions fuel more thoughts. And now they're actually changing their biology. And then they do something really, 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 really important. They start looking at the thoughts that they no longer want to think. They write them down. I can't. It's too hard. I'll start tomorrow. I don't feel good. They start looking at the choices they're going to have to stop making. And when they understand when they stop making those choices, it's going to be uncomfortable. That's the hardest part about change. They start thinking about the things they have to stop doing. I got to get off the couch. I got to stop watching this. I got to stop overeating, whatever it is. And then we've all done this. And there comes a moment where you start noticing that, like, you start saying, hey, I believe this is actually going to happen, right? Yeah. And that's when you take the foot off the gas pedal and you start really realizing, wow, I was the resource of actually making this happen. And I changed. I changed in the process. So the exciting part about it, you talk to people who created wealth, you talk to people who created relationships, you talk to people who have created health. They'll tell you my disease, my poverty was my greatest teacher. My past was my greatest teacher. They look back at their past, and now there's no longer an emotion associated with it. The memory without the emotional charge is wisdom. Now you get to go to the future. You get to create whatever you're free-willed. You could be anybody you want to be in the process, right?
The memory without the emotional charge. That's how you erase its impact on you from the past. I want to ask you something about that. I've always wanted to ask you this. And by the way, Joe and I, we've flown on my plane together. There's all these times I wanted to ask you this question. And I wondered, because I have created some things in matter in the material world that maybe now I'm at this place where it's dawned on me all along. My fear is that I think sometimes if I think the way I'm about to ask you about, maybe I wouldn't have created any of the material things, which I know is flawed thinking. And it's this. It's that this idea that you can get to this heightened, gamma wave brain state, and you're just fully intentional, right? Having an intention at that time. We have a culture that's been taught for years and years and years to get really clear intention about the physical matter things we want. I want $1 million in the bank. I want a private jet. I want to weigh 150 pounds. But the truth is, we really don't want those things. We want the emotion we think those things will give us. Wouldn't it be smarter for people to get, and very few people ever do, to get clear about the emotions they wish to experience on a regular basis and not the physical matter things?
Well, that's exactly the point. That's exactly the point. And look, people can create all kinds of wealth, Ed. They can create all kinds of abundance. They can have the cars, the homes, and everything. But if they can't be present to enjoy them, I've sat with billionaires and they've looked me in the eye and said, "We're all miserable.
Same here.
We're all miserable." And so then, at what point do you have to wait to change? Does it have to be that lowest point, or can you learn and change in a state of joy and inspiration instead of pain and suffering? And that becomes the art, right? So then, to change then is to be greater than the habituations, the drives, and the emotions that have been conditioned in the body. To change is to be greater than the conditions in our environment, that every person, every object, everything in our life has a neurological network associated with them. They're knowns because we've experienced them, and we have an emotion associated with them. So if you're not being defined by a vision of the future, you're left with the memories of the past, and you see your ex, and you're going to see your ex through the memory of your past neurologically, and that's going to elicit an emotional response. And you're thinking and feeling equal to your environment. Your life's not going to change. So then the next question is, how could I overcome that condition that with my ex? Can I actually forgive? Could I actually open my heart? Can I actually... The reason we do this is because the stronger the emotion we feel towards someone or something in our life, the more we pay attention to them. Yeah. And where we place our attention is where we place our energy. And so then we're giving our power away to that person or circumstance. That's vital life force you could use to change. The person who's sitting in the meditation and they want to quit, they're thinking they're doing their meditation wrong. I want to tell you, you're doing it right. That's the defining moment, right? And you lower the volume to that emotion, I guarantee you'll take your attention off that person. And sooner or later, when the body finally settles down and you get beyond it, you're going to take your power back. And that's building your own electromagnetic field. Now you have energy to heal. Now you have energy to create. We measured this. Now you have energy for creation, right? So we see this incredible dance that goes on now because we've built the technology between the heart and the brain. So then when the brain and the heart are coherent, my goodness, there's a feeling, well, you can call it the zone or whatever you want to call it, where just you feel like you have enough time to get things done, and no person, no circumstance is going to break you from your state, right? That zone or whatever you want to call that is actually teachable. So do you have to reach gamma to do that? No. Okay. We're just knowing that the people that hit gamma, they had an instantaneous biological upgrade. There's the eczema, 37 years of eczema, the next day it's gone. Back to your original question. We have great evidence in testimony, and we have great evidence in our scientific studies. And evidence is the loudest voice, and you can't tell me you're too old to do this. You can't tell me you're too sick to do this. I've seen people with 50 brain tumors that were emaciated, couldn't walk, couldn't speak, on the stage, talking in front of an audience. Can't tell me you're too sick to do this. Now, if you examine that person, who comes to the event and there's no hope. You have 3 months to live, you have 6 months to live, and they're not accepting that or believing that or surrendering to that. They're actually saying there's got to be some other way. There's got to be some other way. If I created this, is it possible that I can uncreate it? So then the person who's on the stage telling that story, and it may have taken them 18 months, but they never missed a day. Why is that essential? Because there were days where they felt so bad in their body, so sick that they didn't feel like doing their meditation, but they did it anyway. There were days they had so much doubt because their condition was actually worsening and they could have succumbed to their doubt, but they did their meditation anyway. There were days that they were in such incredible fear because the doctor told them it was 3 months and it would be over, and it was the 3-month period. And they had every reason to not do their meditation, but they did it anyway. They could have said, I don't have enough time, I have kids, I got schedules. They found time to do it, and it was the overcoming that was the becoming process.
Becoming.
And when they became that person, what is the side effect of your own personal transformation? For example, most people, when they have a physical health condition, the moment they notice there's a change, like in pain, in something, in their sleep, whatever it is, there's some change. They make the connection right away, and that's when it's the dog on the bone. Now they're doing it twice a day, not because they have to, because that's their medicine. And I have sat with the scientists that have come to our events. I asked them to participate in a week-long event, and the one guy who's looking at the virus outside the cell, I said to him, well, how is this going to change? How is this going to change the way you do research? He said, this is my medicine. I've seen what it does. And people say, oh, are you saying meditation actually can cause your body to be resistant to viruses? I say, no. I'm not saying that. The data is saying that. I'm not. This is not what I'm saying. The data is actually saying that. So what a great time in history to be alive, because you could be young. We have people that are 8 years old, 9 years old. We have usually about between 70 and 100 kids that come to our event that are under the age of 25 and under. We have kids that are 7, 8, 9 years old that participate all the way. I got down on my knees with one of these kids, and we were doing a specific meditation, and I leaned over and I said to him, "How was that?" And he said, "That felt really good." And why do I want that to be the normal feeling for him? Because I want to know who he's going to be. Yeah, we're changing his gene expression at that age, right? And so it's an amazing time. This is a time in history where it's not enough to know. This is a time in history to know how. So my interest, to answer your question, is to demystify the process. No different than learning how to hit a golf ball. Everybody that has a skill that can do anything really well has done the exact same thing that I'm talking about. There's nothing different about it.
Yeah, but you're demystifying by giving us the recipe and the formula and using science to validate it, really, for the first time. That's really the difference.
Yeah, and but really, don't believe me. Right. Don't believe me. Go out and experiment with it. Go out and experiment. Say, if I change my energy, will my life change?
Let's talk about some basic stuff today first. Lay the foundation. Nothing with you is basic, but what is the power of thought? Because we talk about this all the time. This in personal development today, everyone's talking about, you got to control your thoughts and control your habits and all these things. And there's a baseline message about that. But you're the best in the world at explaining exactly why this is so important. So give us some background there.
Yeah, I think if everything starts with a thought. I mean, everything that you do in your life, you have to have a thought before you initiate an action, right? So if you believe that your thoughts have something to do with your destiny, like any great leader in history understands that, the first thing you have to do is you have to decide, are you going to be defined by a vision of the future, or are you going to live by the memories of the past? So I'll give you an example. Most people wake up in the morning and your brain is a record of the past. It's an artifact of everything you've learned and experienced to this moment, right? It's a memory bank. So most people wake up in the morning and they start thinking about their problems, and those problems are connected to certain people and things at certain times and places. And the moment they start turning on those circuits, those memories are actually causing them to think in the past. Every single one of those memories has an emotion associated with them, and emotions are the end product of past experiences. So then the moment they recall the event, or they recall some problem in their life, they start feeling unhappy, they start feeling discouraged, they start feeling anxious. Now, thoughts are the language of the brain, and feelings are the language of the body, and how you think and how you feel creates your state of being. So we could say then, most people's entire state of being when they start their day is in the familiar past. Well, if you live in the familiar past, then it makes sense you're going to create the predictable future. So what happens for most people is they get stuck in their biology. So think about this. Your body is your unconscious mind. It doesn't know the difference between an experience in your life that creates an emotion and an emotion that you can create by thought alone. So if you're living by the same emotion every single day, and those emotions are influencing your thoughts, and you can't think greater than how you feel, or feelings have become the means of thinking, you're thinking in the past. Your lens of the future is going to be colored by the past, so you can't see possibilities. So most people like to wait for crisis or disease or diagnosis before they wake up enough to see. Well, the challenge is that biology tends to be redundant. So if you keep thinking the same thoughts, and those thoughts begin to fire certain circuits in your brain, the nerve cells that fire together wire together. So all of a sudden you start getting hardwired. And those are the thoughts that you can think the easiest. At the same time, those thoughts produce chemicals called emotions. And the next thing you know, your body gets accustomed to living by the same emotions. And it could be guilt. It could be unhappiness. It could be pain. But at least it's familiar to you. At least you can predict it. So some people would rather cling to the familiar than take a chance in possibility. So for most people then, they say, well, I don't really see how my thoughts have anything to do with my destiny. Well, that's because 95% of those thoughts are subconscious programs, right? So you're not even conscious that you think those thoughts. So the first step to change is starting to think about what you've been thinking about and change it. And then when you begin to observe those thoughts, you're no longer the program, you're the consciousness observing
Just
the program.
simply by being an observer of your thoughts.
Right. So most people, though, when you do that, when you decide to really take a look, it's like lighting a match in a dark place. So you feel uncomfortable. So it's easier to turn on your TV. It's easier to play with your cell phone, to distract yourself from those feelings. Well, when you understand that change really requires becoming uncomfortable to a certain degree, and that's normal, that you're leaving the known and you're stepping into the unknown, then it begs the question, what thoughts do you want to fire and wire in your brain? Because your attention on those thoughts begins to reorganize circuitry, remold the brain.
So, I love this, by the way. How do you flip that to your advantage? So meditation is really means to become familiar with, correct?
Right.
So we're going to talk a little bit about meditation as we go forward here in a second. But if it is true that your body is your unconscious mind, which I didn't know that, and it is true that it does not know the difference between a real event or an imagined event, can't you really use that to your advantage, though?
Of course. So let's talk about that. Because this is because you do this really well. Because most people are waiting for their life to change.
Yes.
So they can feel gratitude, to feel abundance, to feel whole. You know, that's the old model of cause and effect, you know. So if you're living with emptiness, you're living with lack, you're living with pain, most people have been conditioned that something out there has to take away this emptiness or feeling inside of them. But if you believe that you're creating your life and you're living by lack, well, lack isn't going to create abundance, right? So then it makes sense then that you don't really actually create wealth, you generate wealth, you generate abundance. So the moment you start teaching your body emotionally what that future is going to feel like before it's made manifest, well, your body as the unconscious mind believes it's living in that future in the present moment. Now, it's a scientific fact that it's the environment that signals the gene, okay? The end product from an experience in the environment is an emotion. So when you begin to embrace an elevated emotion, you're beginning to signal the gene ahead of the environment. What's the importance of that? Well, genes make proteins, and proteins are responsible for the structure and the function of your body. And the expression of proteins is the expression of life. So by you creating an elevated emotion and teaching your body what that future will feel like before it's made manifest, your body's starting to live in that future reality in the present moment. Now here's the key. If you were able to become familiar with gratitude, become familiar with wholeness, become familiar with abundance, to become familiar with freedom, and you're able to generate those chemicals every single day, more than likely you would be walking around feeling like your future has already happened, and you would no longer be looking for it to happen. You would already feel like it has happened. Now, what is the importance of that? Well, you're literally becoming somebody else.
Yes.
So you're leaving your lack, you're leaving your guilt, you're leaving your emptiness behind.
Oh my gosh, that's so good. So you talk about, I want to stay in here for a minute because I know people right now are going, oh my gosh. And I'm doing that right now too. So now we get into stuff that just benefits me. One of my favorite things you say is that, and it's a general thing, but I want to move into how you become this. So you say often that in order to change your personal reality, you must change your personality. But I think also that people maybe aren't aware of how that personality was formed. And we've started to go down that road, but I want to keep going for a minute.
Sure.
And so you talk often about how a mood over time can end up turning into a personality of sorts. So could you talk about that a little bit?
Sure, let's talk about it in two ways, okay? So your personality, literally, Ed, is made up of how you think, how you act, and how you feel. And how you think, how you act, and how you feel is your personality, and your personality is intimately connected to your personal reality, your life. So then if you want to change your life, your personal reality, you got to change your personality. And here we go again. You got to start becoming conscious of your unconscious thoughts. You got to start noticing how you act, how you speak. You got to pay attention to how you're feeling. Some people would live in guilt their whole entire life and don't even know it's guilt because at least it feels like them. So then when you start doing that, you begin to objectify your subjective self. So then when you begin to make small changes, back to thought, a new thought should lead to a new choice. A new choice should lead to a new behavior. A new behavior should create a new experience, and a new experience should create a new emotion.
Yes.
And that new emotion is teaching your body chemically to understand what your mind has intellectually understood. Now your body is embodying the truth, right? So then the new emotion should inspire new thoughts, and that's called evolution. So how do we get stuck? It's really simple. The stronger the emotion you feel from some event in your life, be it a betrayal or a trauma or whatever, the more altered you feel inside of you, the more you pay attention to the cause outside of you. So the brain takes a snapshot. It freezes an image and embosses that pattern neurologically in the brain, and that's called a memory. So we create long-term memories from strong emotional events, okay?
So is that true? That I just want to understand. Maybe the larger the event in terms of its emotion to you, the stronger of a hold it has over you?
Yeah, well, the more it's embossed in your biology. So some certain people have a strong experience in their life, and it catches all of the brain's attention. So now they think neurologically within the circuits of the past experience, and they feel chemically within the boundaries of those emotions. And so how you think and how you feel creates a state of being. Now here's the problem, that if you don't know how to mediate or control your emotional reaction to that event, and you keep that refractory period of chemicals going on for extended periods of time, so that the event produces a chemical change, and the body needs to return back to homeostasis or balance. But if it can't, then the elongation of that emotional reaction for weeks, say, for days or weeks, is called a mood. So you say, Ed, what's wrong with you? I'm in a mood. Why are you in a mood? Well, this thing happened to me 5 days ago, and I'm having one long emotional reaction. So then what you do is you keep telling the story about it, keep firing and wiring the same circuits, and you keep conditioning the body into the past. So then you wake up in the morning, you look for the emotion. So then now, all of a sudden, you keep it lingering for weeks or months. That's called the temperament. Well, why is he so angry? I don't know. Let's ask him. Why are you so angry? Well, this thing happened to me 8 months ago. I'm having one long emotional reaction. I'm memorizing my emotions. You keep it going on for years on end. That's called a personality trait. So then a person then is memorizing themselves by living in the past. And so then you say to them, well, tell me the story. Now, the latest research on memory says that 50% of what we talk about in our past isn't even the truth. So we make stuff up about the past. In other words, people are reliving a life that they didn't even have just to reaffirm that they can't change, right? So then what's the significance of this? Where you place your attention is where you place your energy. Period. So then the stronger the emotion that you have to some problem or condition or person in your life, the more you're paying attention to them. So they captured your attention. So you're giving your power away to that person, right? Because they're capturing your attention. So then there's an energetic connection to every person, everything in your past, present reality has your energy connected to it. So now, this is the significance. When a person really decides to be defined by a vision of the future instead of the memory of the past, the hardest part about it is all of a sudden becoming conscious and not making the same unconscious choice. So then, if you lower the volume to your frustration, to your hatred, to your anger, if you truly knew how to do that, if you lowered the volume to that emotion, you would take your attention off that person, which means you would begin to break those energetic bonds, and now you're taking your power back. You're calling energy back to you, and we've measured this, and all of a sudden it builds this bigger electromagnetic field around the person's body. That's energy to heal. That's energy to create a new future with, right? And then if you didn't want to lower the volume to the emotion, then just take your attention off the person. And every time you take your attention off the person, if you became conscious of that, you wouldn't feel the emotion. Now the body, though, has been addicted to that emotion because you're using that person to reaffirm your addiction to hatred or frustration. And if that person died, you'd find another one. So then here you go now. So now you're in a position now where you begin to lower the volume to that emotion, and the body's going, wait a second, you've been doing this for the last 20 years, and all of a sudden you're just going to stop hating? And the body says, well, I've been conditioned this way, and conditioning is based on the past. So when the body feels the lack of that emotion, just like a drug addict, it says, hey, you're off schedule here. So now the body starts influencing the mind to think about experiences that are embossed in the brain that are based on that emotion. So the emotion now is causing you to think in the past. If we teach a person then how to trade that frustration or that hatred for an elevated emotion, and they'll say, yeah, but you know, it was my ex's fault, or I got betrayed by my partner in business. Yeah, we know that. Okay, so let's take your partner in business or take your ex, let's duct tape them, put them in a cannon and shoot them to the moon. Now what are you gonna do? Sooner or later, you gotta reckon with yourself and change, right? So then, teach a person then how to trade that emotion for an elevated emotion. Now,
Trade the emotion for an elevated emotion.
right. So you're going to give that up, and you're going to practice feeling gratitude, as an example.
Yes.
And the person says, well, I can't feel gratitude. And I say, absolutely you can, because you don't practice feeling it. You practice spending most of your time feeling hatred and frustration. So now it's going to take a little time to cause that heart of you to bloom, or your heart of yours to bloom. Once they're able to feel even the smallest measure of gratitude, where they start feeling appreciation, thankfulness, gratitude, it's emotional signature. When you get something, when you're receiving something, when something has happened to you, or when something is happening to you, you say thank you because you're receiving something. So the emotional signature of gratitude means the event has already happened, or it's happening to you. So the moment you open your heart and you feel gratitude, well, that emotion then is telling the body that the experience has already occurred, and the thought then can make it into the body because it's consistent with the thought. So now you're beginning to program the autonomic nervous system into a very specific destiny. You got to maintain that modified state of mind and body your entire day, independent of the conditions in your outer environment, independent of your body's cravings of those emotions and habituations, and independent from time. And if you can, get ready, because something weird or unusual, some synchronicity, some coincidence, some opportunity is going to land in your lap. And you didn't have to go and get it.
Yes.
It came to you. Now you're the vortex of creation. So if you say to me, well, I was feeling gratitude, but then there was traffic, or my coworker sent me a nasty email, then I would say, oh my God, you mean you're allowing your environment, your outer environment, to control how you feel and think? You're back to the unconscious program that you're the victim to your life.
You got it.
But when you start producing those outcomes in your life, you're going to pay attention to what you did inside of you, and you're going to believe more that you're the creator of your life and less of the victim of your life.
That is so unbelievable, the way that I've never heard anybody ever say it like that before, because I've watched people who's, this person's caused this insecurity in their life. And even when they remove the person, what they'll do is, okay, now I'm going to feel gratitude, what you just said, but their body is still addicted to that emotion, and they go seek other references to get them that emotion again. So the first thing you said that I love, that I've not heard before, is one is acknowledge when that addiction rears its head again, just by acknowledging it. The second thing that really nobody talks about is, it's wonderful to meditate and to get into that space, but then you must get up and be active towards that goal. That's what most people don't ever talk about.
We're changing our brain and body to live in that future present reality so that you feel connected to a future instead of the past. And when you're connected to the past, you're looking for it. And if you're looking for it, you're separate from it. If you're being it, then there's a complete change in energy, and nobody changes until they change their energy. And when you change your energy, you change your life. After 8,500 brain scans, I can tell you that you and I are at our absolute best when we get beyond ourselves. That is the elegant moment where we're free enough to create without any encumbrances.
So this has been measured too. So there's these different energy centers in the body. Is it true that if you're holding on to these other emotions, I just want a basic answer for this for the group too. If you're holding on to these negative emotions and you're not moving towards this more empowering emotion, what happens to these energy centers in the body? Can you describe that to some extent?
The majority of our thoughts and feelings are connected to our sexuality, to our victimization, our guilt, our suffering, our shame, our unworthiness, our self-doubt, or our importance, our control, our fear, our anger, our frustration, our hatred, our judgment. Those are the first three hormonal centers in the body. And those first three centers have everything to do with survival. And those centers are energy consumers. Orgasm, digestion, stress. is a lot of energy that we're drawing from our very vital life force, our resource of light and information, and we're turning it into chemistry, and we're literally robbing the body's energy, right? So then living like that for the short term is okay, because the body can move back to homeostasis, it can restore itself, but when we're overdoing that consistently, then there's no energy for growth and repair, because you're living constantly in survival. So again, you can eat all the right food, you can do all the right things, but if you're living in anxiety and fear and you're viewing your world from the worst case scenario that could possibly happen, because that's what you do in survival, there's no energy for growth and repair. There's no energy for healing. So the majority of our thoughts are signaling certain circuits in the brain that signal another part of the brain, the limbic brain, to make what's called a neuropeptide. Neuropeptides are chemical messengers that signal hormonal centers. So now you're taking thought and you're storing it as energy in these energy centers. And if you're living in survival, why would you open your heart? I mean, it's just not a time to open your heart. I mean, if you're getting chased by T-Rex, it's not a time to meditate. It's not a time to learn. It's not a time to connect. It's not a time to communicate. It's not a time to sit down and go within. It's not a time to be vulnerable. It's time to run, fight, or hide. And so,
is that why we're this way? I've never asked you this before. Is this some? I don't think you believe this, but I just want to understand. Is this some sort of genetic disposition that's been passed down to us since we've been chased by T-Rex?
I think so. I think survival has been very adaptive.
Yeah.
Like, because if you're being chased by T-Rex, you don't run up to T-Rex and say, "Oh, cute little dinosaur, let me pet you." That's not adaptive. The fear is adaptive. You run from the unknown. You run from challenges, right? So if you're living in survival, there's better chances of surviving if you run from the unknown. And by the way, when you're living in survival, the infinite potentials in the quantum field, you'll select the worst case scenario in your mind. And you'll begin to emotionally prepare yourself for the worst case scenario, because you have better chances of surviving.
There you go.
If you prepare for the worst, right?
There you
so
go.
people spend their whole life thinking about the worst thing and emotionally embracing it. Well, you take a thought and emotion, or an image and an emotion, you're branding or conditioning your body into what? Anxiety, into fear. So then you keep doing that over and over again, the body becomes the mind of fear. And whether you think you can control it or not, you're going to have a panic attack. And the panic attack is the body saying, "You've conditioned me this way. Try as you may with your conscious mind to control it." You programmed it subconsciously. Then you start worrying about the next panic attack, and it's that very anticipation that keeps the person on the hamster wheel,
and robs them of all of this energy as well.
They're absolutely so they don't believe in possibility when they're living in that state, because in survival, it's not a time to create. All the blood flow is going to the hind brain and away from the forebrain. There's no physiology really for a person to begin to create a new future. So think about it. So then 70% of the time, people in the world are living anticipating the next moment based on their past moment. And so they're laying reality down moment by moment with the next known, the next predictable moment. And so the hormones of stress endorse the senses. Our senses become heightened when we're under stress, and we become materialists. We narrow our focus on the danger. So then you're focusing on matter, you're focusing on the material world, and when you do that, you put all your attention, the arousal of the stress hormones puts all your attention on your body. If you're being chased by T-Rex, you better be paying attention to your body. When people start reaching this moment, my goodness, they're overcoming themselves. And now they're at that perfect place to create. And my definition of creation is when I forget about myself. That's when you're free. So some people can do it because they've practiced it. Other people can't get beyond the addiction of a certain emotion. That means their body is still their mind. So then if you're sitting in a meditation and your body's throwing the kitchen sink at you and saying, "Ed, you're a loser, you're never going to change, this is too hard, why don't you quit?" And you're aware that that's your body doing that, and you say to your body, "We're going to sit here, and we're going to sit in this fire, and I'm going to keep applying the formula," and your brain starts running to all the emails you have to do, and you become aware of that, and you return back to the present moment, and you tell the body it's no longer the mind, that you're the mind. Now your will is getting greater than that program, and there's a liberation of energy. And every time you do that, that's a victory. And you teach people. Every
time you do that, that's a victory. When your mind tells the body, "I'm in charge."
When you say to when you want to get up and you want to quit, and you go, "Oh, no, that's my body. Bring it back." And now you're taming the animal. The body is the animal, and you're like a dog. You sit. And if you keep doing this, you're climbing on top, and the body finally acquiesces. It finally says, I'm not going anywhere. And then boom, there's this liberation of energy. What's the side effect? Joy. Person's heart just automatically opens up, and every time they do that, those victories add up. There's no such thing as a bad meditation. There's only overcoming yourself. And when you sit in the fire and you work with that, people say to me, why do you meditate every morning? I say, because if I can overcome myself in the morning, the rest of my day is easy.
Is
it's
that
easy.
Not true?
Because that's what it's about. You master yourself, you master your life.
Yes.
And so then all the chatter in your head that you listen to all day long, that is called the default mode network in the brain. Our research shows that shuts off. Not just shuts off during the meditation, it stays shut off for the rest of the day. So the critic in your head that's telling you this will never happen, you don't have enough time, there's no voice there. So you just have a clear flow on where you're going, and you trust yourself more.
Yes.
So then when you start practicing creating that brain and heart coherence, you can believe in a future that you can't see or experience with your senses yet, but you've thought about enough times in your mind that it's actually, there's physical evidence in your brain to look like it's already happened.
Man.
And you can begin to understand, you can select a new potential in the quantum field, and every day emotionally embrace that future reality to such a degree that your body begins to believe it's living in that future reality in the present moment. And you're signaling new genes and new ways to change your body to look like it's already happened. Now think about this. If there's physical evidence by thought alone in your brain and body to look like your wealth or your future has already happened, it's already happened.
It already happened.
And you're already it. So it's not about your wealth. It's not about your health. It's not about your freedom. It's who you become. So then as you overcome, you become someone else. And so most people don't understand that that the truth is that every time you overcome yourself a little bit more, the side effect is that you love yourself a little bit more. And so now self-love is no longer about pleasure or having a car. It's something that you're cultivating within you. So then imagine, we have research to show, and this is such a duality, that when you start seeing the brain start synchronizing, getting coherent. The front of the brain and the back of the brain, the two hemispheres coming together, and we can say to scientists that come and study our work, oh, watch this, Ed's gonna pop. What do you mean? Just watch, this is gonna be good. And all of a sudden you see this brain going into this kind of psychic union, the heart blows wide open, you see coherence going on, and you'll look around at that person, and there's tears running down their face. Imagine feeling so whole that it's impossible to want. I mean, how can you want when you're whole? Because you feel like you already have it. Now, when you reach that point, that's when the magic happens, because now you are worthy to receive. And the universe only gives us what we think we're worthy of receiving.
Share this with them, please.
Yeah, I think, for me, I'm curious and I'm a pragmatist. I mean, if you tell me something, all I want to know is how I'm going to use it in my life. And, and I'm not into dinner conversation because nobody changes from that. I'm a doer, and I want to be around doers. And
this is why you and I connect so well, I think.
And obviously, you get a group of people that are passionate about transformation, and they've done some of the work. When we were doing our 4.5-day advanced workshops, right around the end of the event, I was seeing people starting to seeing some really great transformations, and I thought,
this is the pop.
Yeah, it's a pop. I mean, big pops, and we were like, we had to send them home, and I was like, oh God, man, if I could just have them for a week. So we created these week-long events where people retreat from their lives, and they remove the constant stimulation in their external environment that reminds them of who they think they are as a personality. They separate themselves from the people they know and the places they go and the things that they do at a certain amount of time in their routine, mundane life. So we'll bridge a little quantum physics with a little neuroscience, a little endocrinology, a little epigenetics, psychoneuroimmunology. Those are all sciences about possibility. And I now know that if you can give people sound scientific information, and, for me, that's the language.
I know.
And then if they can turn to the person next to them and explain it, you're not going to get off the hook. If you can't explain it, it's not wired in your brain. But if you can build a model and explain it, you're installing the neurological hardware in your brain in preparation for the experience. So the more you understand what you're doing and why, the how gets easier because you can assign meaning to it. So then if I can set up the conditions and the environment and give them the proper instructions and push the envelope a little bit.
Yeah.
And people who get their behaviors to match their intentions and their actions equal to their thoughts, they get their mind and body working together, they're going to have a new experience. And the experience then is not only going to enrich the philosophical circuits in their brain, because experience does that, but it's going to produce an emotion. Yeah. So they're going to start feeling more unlimited. They're going to start feeling more free. Now they're teaching their body chemically to understand what their mind is intellectually understood. So if you've done it once, you should be able to do it again.
You have the recipe, you have the formula.
So if you can repeat it, you will neurochemically condition your mind and body to begin to work as one. In other words, the body will start to learn how to do it as well as the mind, and you won't have to consciously think about it any longer. So it gets easier, right? So we follow that format, and the first couple days is that getting beyond your life, getting beyond your emotions. Everybody's got to do it, but if you just keep applying the formula, keep going, and I keep reminding you and keep building the model, I give them numerous opportunities to connect and numerous opportunities to overcome themselves. Sooner or later, you're just going to figure it out. It doesn't matter. You're just going to figure it out. And when you do, then we start seeing now these incredible transformations and changes. And it's like a 4-minute mile.
Yeah.
Because I really think now, Ed, that evidence is the loudest voice.
Sure.
It is the loudest voice. And so we've got all the brain scans, we've got all the heart rate measurements, we got great measurements on immune regulation, how you can strengthen your immune system by thought alone. We have great measurements on that you could actually change your genes in 4 days, lengthen your telomeres, lengthen your life within 60 days, change your neurotransmitters, change the energy around your body, the energy centers of your body, and change all this stuff. And so that's the scientific evidence, but the evidence of people now is really the laboratory. So then what's the side effect of a person then who begins to make significant changes in just mastering that formula? Well, the side effect is a remission from a health condition. So we have seen not once, not twice, more than twice, blind people. Like that one lady had a stroke on the optic nerve, a nurse from London, very smart lady, and the lesion was on the optic nerve, and it created a blind spot in her visual field from 6 o'clock to 9 o'clock. So she can't see anything there, and so she lost her license. She has her own company. She couldn't read emails, and sooner or later your brain accommodates a little bit, but not fully. And so the typical prognosis with a stroke when there's neurological damage is that if your brain doesn't recover within 2 weeks,
it's going to stay. It's
going to stay the same and slowly get worse. So she has great relationships with all the physicians, and they all said, yeah, you're going to have to learn to live with it. And believe it or not, one doctor said, hey, why don't you try going to this event? And this nurses are practical people. I mean, they're super practical people. And you want to get a good doctor, ask a nurse, right?
Sure.
And they're just very, very practical. So she did the online course, she did both the courses, she read all the books, she did all the meditations, and she came to the event with the intention of learning how to live with her condition. It didn't occur to her fully that she could heal it. And she went because she wanted to start a nonprofit to help people.
Wow.
So she went with a doctor that recommended the work, and just a certain point in the middle of the event, she was doing a walking meditation on the beach with 1,000 other people there, and it occurred to her that maybe she should think about healing her eyes. So she went into the meditation in the same day. And she laid down after we finished the meditation, and she said it was like someone taking cellophane, crackling it in her head. She felt something going on inside her brain, and she was crying because she knew something spectacular was happening. And she didn't want to open her eyes, and then the meditation ended, and she said, when I opened my eyes, it was like I was seeing so much brighter. Wow. And she said, I could see no blind spot, and the doctor was laying right next to her, and she was sobbing. They were hugging each other, gosh. And so she went on the Monday morning to get her eyes, the visual fields measured, and hopefully we'll get the image for you. But
sure.
You can see on the pre-measurement just a black that quarter of the sphere,
the lesion
of the circle, was just all black. In other words, blindness. You see the post measurement on the Monday morning after the event. There isn't a black spot.
Unbelievable.
Complete restoration of sight. Now, if you ask me if that was possible, 2 years ago, I would say, yeah, it's possible theoretically. But now, like, this is the 4-minute mile. Then we have another lady that was blind from birth, 5% vision, and again, she had an amazing experience with our coherence healing. We teach people how to heal. When she opened her eyes, she could see faces for the first time.
Unbelievable.
And in fact, they had these 2 big bouquets on the stage, really big, beautiful flowers. And she had 5% vision, so she could just see a little bit of light. And she thought they were 2 guards, 2 bodyguards on the stage guarding me the whole event. And when she sat up, she could see flowers. Or you see the nurse tell her story, or the lady who's allergic to everything at the same event, who's wearing a mask with the filters and the whole bit, that had anaphylactic shock every day of her life. By the second day, she's on the floor with her mask off, dancing around. A person sits down after they witness that. When they close their eyes and they do their next meditation, their acceptance, their belief, and their ability to surrender and trust that it could happen to them becomes greater. What I want our community to do is say, what is standing in the way between me and my ability to connect to that field? Because I want to eliminate every belief, every emotion, every past, whatever. I want to remove all of those veils. Why am I doing this? Because I want to get so good at this. We have some MIT researchers that are going to organize all the data. 50%. I want to get to 50%, and then we are going to walk into children's hospitals and we're going to say, what kids, just give us your kids. We won't touch them, we don't want any money, all we want to do is help. And I think that is...
that's amazing.
That's a living organism called the human beings, the living organism, the human being. The age of selfish individuality has to end right now. The living organism has to take care of one another. They have to heal one another. They have to teach one another. They have to exchange important information amongst one another. They have to shine for one another, not to be outstanding and competitive, but to show others that they can shine. That's the only way we're going to make our way out of this mess.
Oh my gosh. My favorite things that I've ever had said here, just so you know. Because the application of this is beyond just someone going from 5% vision to 95% vision. The application of this in humanity and consciousness, as you've just described there at the end, is what really I'm hearing and seeing all of that. That's what fascinates me. And I must say to you that we all agree that certainly our thoughts can make us unhealthy. So if that is true, there's got to be a way that the mind and the heart can be able to heal the body as well. And I'm fascinated by the study of epigenetics, and what you've just covered here it's a whole new level. I love what you said. We've poked a hole. It's the 4-minute mile. But
the reason it's the 4-minute mile is because once the 4-minute mile was broken, 2 weeks later everybody was breaking it, because it was a new belief,
it's
a new level of consciousness. Yep. So the evidence of all these amazing healings, and not only just healings, people are creating new jobs, new opportunities, new relationships, new mystical experiences that transcend language, where you just can't be Ed anymore. You know too much after that. That's the unknown, right? So in order for you to really begin to explore the unknown aspect of yourself, you got to learn how to get beyond the known aspect of yourself. And if you keep coming back to the known, you're going to miss out on the unknown. So you would say, well, I don't know anything in the unknown. Of course, it's the unknown. And if you try to control it there, you're back to the known. If you try to predict it, you're back to the known. So you got to go through this trial and error of just kind of refining your attention, refining your ability. And it's just got to be something like playing tennis or playing golf or doing martial arts or working out or crocheting or dancing the salsa. You just got to keep going, man. In the beginning, it's tedious. And then when you start finding your groove, like our community, they don't miss their morning meditations. You know why? Because the magic is happening, and they know if they miss it, they're gonna cut off from the magic. So they, whether they're tired, whether they're hungover, whether they're in. And if you wake up in the morning and you can't get your butt out of bed. You know what that means? It just means you can predict the feeling of everything that's going to happen in your life, and the body's resigned.
The body's
resigned. So then, when you went on a school trip when you were a kid, you woke up before your parents because you knew something new was going to happen. That's the body going, wake up.
Wake up.
It's something unexpected is going to happen. What happened to us, right?
Christmas Day.
Yeah. So why not, put in your time and then measure the effects of you at cause. I mean, become the scientist in your life and really start to experiment with it. Okay, let me change my energy. Let me just write down 4 thoughts that, like, it's too hard, I'll start tomorrow, this doesn't feel right, whatever it is. It's this person's fault. Just write those down and say, these thoughts, like Gandalf on the bridge.
Yes.
You may not pass today. This is the end.
Yes.
So then if you become conscious of those thoughts, now you're the governor of your thoughts. What actions, what behaviors do you want to change? Do you complain? Do you blame? Do you judge? Do you make excuses? How do you talk? Do you speak limited? Just pick 4 things that you're not going to do any longer.
Yeah.
What emotions get you in trouble? What are the emotions
that you're addicted to too, right?
That you're addicted to that keep you returning back to your past. And if you don't know, close your eyes for about 30 minutes and just watch where your mind goes and watch your feelings and just say, okay, it's frustration, it's unworthiness, it's self-doubt, it's guilt, it's frustration, it's shame. Just become conscious of those and just review them in your mind so that you don't go unconscious them in your waking day.
It's so powerful because, by the way, everyone that's listening to this is so awesome because if you've been listening to my content for the last 3 or 4 months, we've been laying this foundation, and now I just bring you this master that takes it to a master class level and explains to you the scientific reasons that these things work. But I want to jump back in with you here on something because I just want to do a couple basic application things for everyone here. These emotions that our body gets addicted to. There's a power, everyone, because I've experienced this in my own life. Everything that Joe's explaining here, other than healing my own body, I've watched them happen in my life from the standpoint of becoming something, and then these things are in my life rather than me sort of forcing them to happen. I mean, most people that have had any great things happen in life can define at least moments of their life where this is just a known truth. Dr. Joe talks so eloquently about the fact that, about this epigenetics concept is fascinating me, but at the same time, you talk eloquently about only about 1% of us are predisposed to most of these negative ailments in our lives in the first place anyways. This is a misnomer.
I mean, Troy's in better shape right now than when he played. I mean, I'm not exaggerating this. I'm not blowing smoke at him. Troy is, when you're a fit dude, I'm pretty fit, you notice it in guys, especially if they're over 45 or 50 years old. Troy is in magnificent, like shredded shape. What are some of your routines to do this? So do you strike me as a dude now that I've met you. I bet you burn pretty hot. You're an intense dude. I bet you have a good time.
Yeah.
But there's
that's true. That's true.
You burn hot. You're an intense dude. So am I. And I admire that about you. I think you are the product that you claim to be. And those are the people I like to be around the most. Like, they live what they say as much as they can.
Yeah.
We all have these weaknesses in our life. So what are some of your routines? Fitness-wise, I know meditation's a big deal for you. Like, what does a day look like for you? Is it regimented or is every day different?
It's pretty regimented. I'd like for it to be a little bit different, but I know what works for me, and I just kind of I stick with that. I've always worked out with weights. And I follow some people on Instagram. I follow yourself on all the motivational stuff. But I listen to Mark Hyman. I've become somewhat of a disciple of his.
Okay.
But it was always, even when I retired, a lot of players will just be burned out on working out.
Right.
And then others go hardcore. I just kept doing it. And so I continued to lift 4 days a week. I was doing cardio. My cardio was running 4 to 6 miles every day. And in a year, if I took 5 days off from cardio in a year, I'd say that's probably a high number.
My gosh, really?
And so then I started having some hip issues about 3 years ago, and I had to stop running. And now I do the indoor bike. So I do, and then with COVID hit, I knew that people were going to go one of two ways, and most people were going to really get in worse shape. Yeah. And I just, again, said to myself, I'm not going to be one of those people. In fact, I ratcheted it up even more to where then I had always been a good eater. I rarely would eat poor meals or have cheat meals. But then I just got really, really disciplined. I don't like the word strict. I just got more and more disciplined in that. And now my routine, Ed, has gotten crazy. I mean, people that know me, I carry this jug around with the water. I drink it out.
He's got his jug. Just so you know. Here's mine.
Hey, we got the same
Same
one.
exact jug, brother. Come on now.
I love it.
There we go.
I love it. Yeah, no, I was drinking up to 3 gallons a day.
You're peeing all the time.
All the time,
Yeah.
and then I read that you hit a certain number,
Right.
it doesn't matter anymore,
Right.
and so I said, well, that's a relief. So I backed off. But I do that. I meditate. I've been meditating for about 10 years. It's changed my life. And then I got the cold plunge. I do the sauna. I do that every evening before I go to bed. And just about a month ago, I got red light therapy. Got the red light stuff going. But I mean, if I read about it, then I want to incorporate it.
Yeah.
And I've always been a good sleeper, but now I just will not relent on my sleep. I just make it an absolute priority, and it's the best I've ever felt in my life.
By the way, I mean, all of those are my jam. I have the red light therapy bed.
It's a great.
I got a Theralight
I just
bed.
started the red light about 2 weeks ago.
Brother, it's awesome. By the way, one thing you can do too, that there's a setting on there for sleep. You have a Theralight bed? Do you know which bed you have?
I've got a panel.
You have a panel? Okay.
Yeah.
Because the thing I have can program it for sleep too, so my sleep's
wow.
actually gotten deeper. Just for the record, I was talking to Alex Guerrero a few weeks ago, Tom's trainer, and we were talking about cold plunge, cold therapy, sauna stuff. And I'm going to play with this. I'm just giving it to you. I can't validate this medically, but he did say that he does think some intermittent break from it, that there is an adaptation your body goes through. And so he recommended to me a little bit of a break, and then your body recalibrates, and the cold plunge and the cold therapy works a little bit better. Yeah. So I do that too.
I do know. Well, the other, first thing I do in the morning is take a cold shower. And I haven't had a hot shower. Period. I haven't had a hot shower in probably 4 months since I started.
Okay,
with
so
the
you
cold
are
plunge.
even crazier than me. You're crazy. Okay.
Yeah, I haven't had a hot shower, but the between the cold plunge and the cold showers, it totally has changed my nervous system.
Me too.
I mean, in a really positive way. I would get anxious about things. I had some social anxiety.
Really?
And I don't want to say I don't have any of it anymore, but I don't think I have any of it anymore. I mean, I just don't feel it. You know, I just don't. And I tell people, I said, it's the greatest thing in the world. And I've got 2 daughters that are in college. And I would mention to them I meditate back when they were in middle school and high school, and they've gotten used to this whole thing. I mean, they kind of laugh about it, but I don't push it on them, but I try to expose them to it, and they'll pick it up at their at their leisure and when the time's right. But
I'm the same way.
They work out, and that's always just that's been part of what they've grown up with. So I like that. I like that they've picked up on the lifestyle of working out.
You meditate in the morning, Troy? When do you meditate? Usually,
I meditate first thing in the morning.
You do,
yeah,
too.
after I shower.
Yeah, one of the things, I don't know if you do this at all too, but by the way, I love that you have such a regimented routine. My confidence, I think, now that I look back on it, I think my confidence comes from the fact that I know I'm not going to get outworked.
Yeah.
And I know that under pressure, I have reflexively good habits that serve me.
Right.
When pressure's cranked up. I sense that with you too. One of the things for me, meditation was very difficult because I am wired pretty tight. And I'm always going. My mind's always thinking. And so meditation was this great gift for me. But one of the things that I've been doing lately with my meditation, I'm just curious if you do it since we're talking about it. I love focusing on my breathing when I meditate. I actually, you're supposed to empty your mind, but one of the things I do lately is I've been really intentional about feeling and sensing my breath. Like breath work is like the next frontier. So I've done the cold plunge, I've done the sauna stuff, I've done the training, I do the lot of the water, a gallon and a half a day. I'm in meditation mode. What's the next thing? The red light therapy. The next thing for me has been like breathing work, breath work. Have you done any of that?
So my meditation, sometimes I feel like sometimes I feel like I'm not advancing like others in that space because I only focus on my breath.
You do? Okay.
And I know there's a lot of different ways to meditate, but I only focus solely on my breath, and then the mind, and then I bring it back. And I hear people say all the time, and I'm like you. I mean, I thought, man, this is going to be tough. But the way that I've been to a few retreats. I've been to a couple retreats, silent retreats.
You ever follow Sadhguru? Do you know who that is?
No.
Okay.
But you talk about the breath work, Wim Hof.
Yes.
You know, I mean, I've had people who are doing his techniques, and he's another that I follow, and he definitely is into the cold.
Sure is.
And some people that are like-minded like us, they tell me that they're doing some of his techniques in the morning first thing, and how life-changing that has been.
Yeah.
Now, I will tell you that the reason I started meditating 10 years ago is because I just felt, Ed, that, gosh, if anyone should be happy in this world, if anyone has achieved everything that they had hoped to achieve, my dream, my whole life was to be a professional athlete. Right. And I was able to do that. And I was able to have this great lifestyle from it. I was broadcasting and, and I called a game at the Super Bowl. It was the helmet catch, David Tyree, when he beat Tom Brady and the Patriots when they were undefeated at the time. And I remember after that game, Ron Jaworski came up to me and said, "Man, that was an unbelievable game. How about that?" And I said, "Yeah, it was great, Ed," or Jaws. And he says, "Oh, yeah." And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "What's wrong?" And I said, Jaws, I didn't do anything. I just talked about it, And when I played in those games and we won, I mean, heck, I'd be the most excited guy in the room. He kind of had this quizzical look, and walked away. And I've never even had this conversation with Ron. But I remember thinking to myself, man, if this is as good as it gets, I just called what may be the greatest game ever played, and yet I feel totally empty. And so I started thinking, man, if anyone should be happy, it should be me. And what's missing, And I started looking up stuff, reading about stuff,
Really?
and meditation was kind of, and that's why I say it's really changed my life, and it's allowed me, and more so in the last couple of years, because of some personal things that really made me take a real hard look at myself and figure some things out. And meditation has had a huge role in that, because for the longest time when I started meditating, I did it, but but the light never came on as to what are the benefits of this. I kept doing it. Yeah. But then about probably 3 years ago, I read a book called The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer.
Great book.
Yeah, and I tried to read it probably 2 years prior to that, and I couldn't get through it. I was just like, this is too much. And then I read it 3 years ago, and whatever it was that was in that book, all of a sudden it just all became crystal clear. Wow. And it's changed my life. And so all this stuff, the water and the cold plunge and all that's great. And but really the reason I feel as good as I do is because of what meditation has
Thank you
meant
for
in my life.
saying that.
Yeah.
Just to meet you in the middle, same with me. I've always, and I can't even be on, if I'm really being honest, because I do that on our show, I don't know that I'm on the other side of what you just described completely yet. I still go, if anyone should be happy and real blissful in their life on a regular basis, it really ought to be me. And I'm not enough. Now, I will say what you said. My faith and my meditation practices have enhanced it tremendously. But I still feel like in my case, there's several levels beyond it where I could be more present in the moment and just enjoy that moment more. That's what meditation's given me, is a little bit more of, okay, I'm in this moment right now, and there isn't another one. The last one I just had doesn't really exist. It's a figment of imagination, and the one coming after this doesn't exist either. But for me too, if I'm being really honest, I still now part of that I think is both of our wiring. That's why we dealt with winning well, because we're
that's why I was going to ask you. What meditation has given me is stillness. When people ask me, what does it do for you? I mean, the word that comes to mind is it gives me stillness in my life, because I was like you, that I just always wanted. I just had to go, and trying to meditate and sit still for that. I just felt like, God, there's things I need to do, and but now I can just meditate and just totally take in the moment. But you're probably like me in this regard then too, that I was hard on myself.
Me too.
That it's crazy that you expect perfection. I would expect myself to be perfect. It didn't matter if it was playing football. It didn't matter if it was giving some speech, whatever it was. I just and it was crazy because there was no reason why I should be perfect. You know, that wasn't even my field or whatever it was that I was so upset with myself about. You know, but I was hard on myself, and so I've had to kind of work through all of that. You know, I've done a lot of personal work, and
I can see it.
Yeah, and that. So there's a lot going on there, and you know, I'm thrilled that I found it in my 50s. I wish I'd discovered it in my 30s, but I'm really grateful that life hasn't passed me by without getting to this point.
Yeah, I have a funny feeling, brother, that you're going to talk a lot more about this over time, and you may end up dabbling over in my side of things. I could see you really reaching a lot of people with this as the more and more you dig deeper and understand more about you and what you're doing. Already today, I guarantee you, we've done 35, 40 minutes so far. I can promise you the last 8 minutes is the part that people are going to be talking about. I think for me, also, I've pursued things so aggressively all the time in my life. A little thing meditation's done for me, and even just me reflecting and getting a little bit older, is I've started to allow certain things just to come to me. That I don't have to go get everything. I don't have to go do everything. Like I've surrendered a little bit of control and my addiction to outcome all the time, and just let a little of it come my way. And I've found it does. And it's the things that make us successful in one area may produce external results, but can produce internal turmoil. And there's just this nuance in our life. Like if I let go of all of my wanting to control things, all of my perfectionism, all of my drive, and all of my being hard on myself, I probably wouldn't have done some of the things I did. But it's the dosage level. Wouldn't you agree?
Totally agree.
It's the dosage.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
I mean, I did a podcast with a former teammate of mine a few years ago, and he talked about how tough I was as a leader and demanding of my teammates, and it made me cringe because I don't feel like I'm that person today, at least not as intense. I'm still intense, but not as intense. And I told him, I said, I think I would have been a different teammate if we were playing today. And I cringe when I hear you say that. And he was like, "What are you talking about? That's why we were able to do what we were able to do." And so I've had this conversation with others, not on a podcast, but I've had it with others, and they say, "Yeah, but that allowed you to do what you did." So I totally understand what you're saying.
Yeah, but one of the main reasons I do it is I want people to experience more bliss and more peace in their life. And that's why I've wanted you here so badly for so long.
That's exactly what we do.
I know
we
that's
have
what you
these
do.
small capsule programs called sky breathing techniques, and when they practice it, they find themselves in a completely different space. They're able to shed the anger and frustration, get connected with one's own inner state, inner peace.
Through breathing.
To breathe.
You also have a book coming out called Notes for the Journey Within.
Correct.
Let's because that's really the journey I'm on right now, and my audience knows it. I'm on this journey within. I think a lot of people master the external game of their life. They get pretty good at achieving different things, but the internal game is a different thing altogether. And so let's talk about that for a minute, because you used meditation as a tool with these leaders, and part of meditation, connected to meditation to me, is breathing. Right? Some yoga practices. What would you tell the average person listening to this who's like, I don't know about this meditation thing. I can't quiet my mind, and, breathing, really? I'm going to start breathing better, and that's going to change my life. Because, by the way, breath work has absolutely transformed my life.
Okay.
And for me, I must tell you, one of the main reasons your teachings have helped me is, I'm sure it's the breathing itself, but it's actually the time I've taken just to be with my body and to be with myself and to just pay more attention to me, and my breathing and getting quiet has caused me to be much more, I think I'd call it self-aware and intentional about different things. So what would you tell people, because meditation is this broad topic, and breathing, what would you share with us?
I would call it as a process of mental hygiene.
Mental hygiene.
Like dental hygiene, it's a mental hygiene. We get so stressed, and neither at home nor in school we learn what to do when we are upset, when our moods are bad, when we are in rage, when we are restless. Nobody has taught us how to manage our mind. And to manage the mind directly is almost impossible. And breath is the link. For every rhythm in the breath, there is a connection to our emotion and our state of mind. So breathing in certain patterns, certain ways, can help us to come out of the despondency we feel with our own moods.
Really good. What I've noticed when I'm not in control of my breathing and anger rises in me, and they've been proven this too, that there's a lack of heart and brain coherence that happens at one time, and you actually give yourself a kind of a form of a lobotomy. When you're very angry and your breathing isn't being regulated, you're not paying attention to it, you actually give yourself a lobotomy. You don't process information as well. You don't make good decisions.
No,
Correct? And that's what you mean by this hygiene. It's cleaning the system to some extent.
Correct. And the breathing and meditation brings clarity in mind and focus in our awareness, in our attention span. Today what we see is the lack of attention span in colleges and schools. Our attention span is reducing day by day. Breathing and meditation help us to get over this attention deficiency syndrome. And there is more intuitive ability that comes up within you. You become more creative. And this is what you want, whether you are in business or in academics, all that you need is an intuitive ability, force from within.
This is why you're brilliant. Let me tell you, I want to elaborate on that. Can I add to what you just said and acknowledge it? So what my breathing and my meditation work has done for me is my attention span has increased. And what I noticed with me, it was odd, like my paying attention to things that were always there that I didn't. And this may sound really corny, but it led to business success. So let me tell you, as I started to do more breath work and more meditation work, my ability to pay attention longer has increased tremendously. And I didn't realize how quickly in a day I go, oh, let me check my phone again. Oh, let me see this. Let me turn the TV on. I didn't realize at 52 years old how much my attention span had shrunk. And it sounds funny, but I started to notice, this sounds funny, everybody, but listen to me. I started to notice like wrinkles on my hand that weren't there before. Paying attention to my hand. I've seen things that were there all the time. Certain trees in my backyard that have been there the entire time I lived there that I have never seen or recognized before. I've noticed the beauty in these trees. I noticed there's a part of my yard where I didn't even know it, where there's a hill that's in their yard. I thought it was flat. I noticed these little things. You think, well, what does that matter? I don't know, but it gave me a lot of peace and joy. And then when I'm in business meetings, now I'm noticing emotions on people and facial expressions and tonality that I wasn't paying attention to. That's made me a better speaker, a better businessman. But that goes all the way back to breath work and meditation. These little symptoms showed up of trees and flowers and a breeze that have led to better decision making.
Yes, Ed, you are absolutely right. The first thing that it does is it improves your perception, observation, and expression. You'll be able to express yourself much better, much clearer to people. That's one thing. I mean, the communication breakdown today in the world is because of this. Lack of expression and lack of understanding of the others. All these benefits happen. There are 100 benefits,
There are.
Established evidence-based benefits on this.
Can you imagine if every world leader of every significant country meditated 30 minutes a day?
Oh, we'll have a wonderful...
Can you imagine? Let me ask you this. What do we get wrong about meditation? Is there something that culture gets wrong about it, that they don't understand, that's a mistaken belief system about it?
I don't think any religion or any faith-based organization opposes meditation.
No?
Meditation is getting connected to yourself. That makes your prayers deeper.
Mm-hmm.
I have a comparison between prayer and meditation. Prayer is like, God, give me this, give me that.
Mm-hmm.
Meditation is, oh, here I am ready to listen to you. What do you have to say to me?
That's so good. Do you know that my dreams have become more vivid and clear also at night?
Mm-hmm.
I just want everybody to hear this. And I'm telling you, this isn't foofy stuff. I mean, it's foofy stuff, but it's also business stuff. It's life stuff. What you just said about your ability to express yourself and to communicate. Now, since you use the word self, let's go pretty deep here, because there's other stuff I want to ask you. So you said self. What is self? I've heard you say you are not your body. You are not even your thoughts or your mind. So who am I? What is self then? If I'm not my thoughts, I'm not my mind, and I'm not my body, what and who are we?
We cannot say I'm just my body. I'm not just my thoughts. I'm not just my emotions. You cannot say I'm not the body, but you can say I'm not just my body.
Not just, okay.
I'm much more than the body, because body is changing, but there is something in me is not changing. Our thoughts are changing, emotions are changing. There is one aspect in you that is a reference point of all changes. Without that, you can't even notice changes. Right?
Right.
You can't say I have changed unless there is somebody inside who has not changed.
Yeah. Right. Right.
Right.
Okay. Yep.
So change can only be noticed with a reference which is non-change. And this non-changing aspect inside of you that doesn't die, that doesn't, age, and that source of all energy is not an entity, but it is a field. It's an energy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And with this reference in life, our other activities, our emotions, our dealings, everything gets a good foothold. They become very stable. The glimpse of your non-changing entity or aspect inside of you can make your life so much more stable and powerful and focused, and and can give impotence to your activity, your dynamism.
Do you think that that's why I want to ask you this, because this is recent work for me, like call it a year that I've been doing. I've noticed that things that used to make me very worried or very angry or give me great anxiety or trepidation
Doesn't do anymore.
it doesn't do it anymore. Or at least it does it a lot less. Is that a product of this?
Absolutely.
Do you have that? So
You're right on the dot. Yes.
yeah.
You may get upset even now, but that doesn't stay too long.
Right.
Even you may get angry, you may shout something, but, it doesn't just touch you, it doesn't sink into you so much. So there is a part of you which remains very blissful, calm, steady, and, serene.
You're right. My faith has always given me a great deal of comfort. I'm a Christian. It's always given me a great deal of comfort and perspective. But my breath work and my meditation work has given me a perspective and calmness that shocks me. Because what you said about me, I've always thought, you know what? I run a little hot. I'm just a wound up guy, and I've found that actually I don't think that's me. I think that was a program I was running for years that I almost became addicted to these emotions of frustration and anxiety and worry and sprinkling a little anger from time to time. That was kind of my cocktail of my emotions. And I find lately it's more like gratitude and bliss and peace and perspective.
Correct.
It's changed.
No, you're right. This is what even, what Jesus said, the kingdom of God is within you. Unless you become like a child from within, getting into that space of innocence within you, you can't get to the kingdom of my Father.
Do you do anything to center yourself? So you flew 18 hours last night, at least, plus the drive, plus this, plus that, plus it's LA, you're driving to me today. Is there anything you do before an interview like this or a moment like this or a day that helps center you? Is there something specific that you do?
No, I don't do anything, any of.
Honestly?
Yeah.
It's just your state of being now.
Yes. When you keep doing something for some time and then it becomes very obvious in your nature and you don't need to do anymore.
But you do believe in karma, and your definition of karma is something I had not heard before also. I thought karma was like, I do something bad, it's going to come back around and get me.
I do something good, it's going to come back around and bless me. But I don't give it away, but you define karma as what?
See, karma is the impression in the mind.
Okay.
Karma has three connotations. One is it's the impressions, and then it is the tendencies, and it is the fruit of the action that you have already executed.
Okay.
So action is also called karma.
Action is karma.
It's
That
karma.
was the difference for me. What do you mean when you say that? Because that was the difference. That action is karma.
There is a term called karma yogi. Means you are putting your 100% and not worried about the result. That is karma yogi.
Hmm.
And your action is an expression of joy rather than expecting joy out of the action.
Wow. Can you say that again? Say that again.
See, usually you are doing a work to get joy from that.
Yes.
Instead of joy as a product of action, now here joy as an instrument of action. You are happy and so you do it. You know?
Those are the people that I remember in my life. Those are the people that, the reason I want you to say it again, the people that I have recollections of that made impressions on me, they are joyful in their actions.
Yeah.
Not trying to get joy from the result of their
From
actions.
the result. No, you put your 100% and your action is out of joy.
Yeah, I think about watching Michael Jordan dunk a basketball with his tongue out, and he's about to dunk. He's just in such bliss as he was doing what he did.
Yes.
Or a great artist playing a song and they're just lost in it, right? Or a speaker on the stage, or an incredible school teacher teaching a lesson, or a mother with their baby.
Yeah, you love what you're doing.
Right.
And you're not expecting some result out of it.
Yeah.
Even if you expect, that doesn't matter, but it's an expression of joy.
That's what I meant earlier when I said separating from outcome. Not being so caught up in the end result as the payoff.
Correct.
And I think there's actually studies now in the brain that say even when you get to the payoff, that the dopamine in your brain actually crashes when you get the reward, that the actual dopamine spike, the joy in your brain is actually in the process and journey of getting there.
Action,
right. They've actually measured it in the brain now. So it's how right you are. You also talk a lot about intuition and intuitive power. And I used to not rely on that. The Bible even talks about discernment as a gift, right? And I used to fear my intuition and not trust it and think, no, I've got to research this or know it. But people that I know that, frankly, make great decisions in their life, they tap into their intuitive power. And you believe that we all have intuitive power, correct?
Absolutely. Every single person, even animals do have intuition. In fact, they're even more intuitive than human beings. We have intuitive power and we need to tap into it. That makes life a lot more fun and a lot more easier.
How do you do that? By just listening to that whisper, that voice in your heart, in your head?
For that, you need to have clarity in mind. If your mind is all with buzz of too many things and worries, forget about intuition. Again, here, breathing and breath work and meditation helps you to connect to that deeper self inside of you, which is not changing.
What specific thing? I want him to read the book and I want him to go to your courses too. So I want to don't give too much, but what about breathing? What could you teach us right now as it relates to our breathing that would benefit us?
See, the first act of life is you took a deep breath in. Then you started crying. The last act of our life is you will breathe out and you'll make others cry.
Yeah.
If you don't do that, then you have not lived a good life.
Wow.
So in between, when we are breathing every day and night, we are releasing toxins from the body. We are bringing to rest our subconscious, unconscious mind. But we seldom attend to the breath, which has several patterns, several rhythms. So by attending to the rhythm of the breath, or breathing it in certain rhythms, sets the clock in its right perspective. No point in having a clock showing Eastern time here in West Coast, right? Or giving a time of Israel in sitting in USA. So you need to set your clock to the current position where you are.
It's really true.
Like that, our mind, our body, our breath, our intellect, our memory, all these 7, our faculties, inner faculties, gets into rhythm.
Mm. Mm.
And so we are in the present moment.
That's what breathing's done for me. Focusing on my breath has brought me to the. I had a hard time just getting quiet, emptying my mind. And when I started to focus on my breath work, I realized I'm right here, right now.
And it's easy.
Yeah, and it's easy. It is so easy. It's interesting in life. The things that are the most wonderful in our lives, we need to be careful not to take for granted. So you have this amazing spouse, and maybe over time, because they're just there all the time, you begin to take them for granted. Or, you know, you have children in your home. Parents can relate to this. And boy, then when they leave, you just go, oh, I hope did I take it for granted when they were here? And breath is like that. Breath is with you all the time. And because it's with you all the time, don't you think we just sort of take it for granted that it's just there and it's not that big of a deal?
Correct.
You agree?
You're right.
Yeah. If you could see his face, he really agrees with me right now. So that's a good thing. Evidently, I've made a very profound point, which I love to hear. Okay. I'm going to get some good stuff on top of this. You say confusion is a temporary state. And I think that so many people in the world right now, they're confused. What's going on in the economy? What's going on in my own life? Am I really pursuing my true purpose? And people just, I feel like pain is temporary also in people's lives. But you talk about this idea that confusion is temporary, and I just wanted you to elaborate on that, because I think people think they're going to live in this perpetual state of not knowing their purpose or their passion or their cause or where they're going.
You know, knowledge comes in contrast. It's always like that. You can feel the cold because there is heat. Similarly, there has to be some clarity. Only then you can even feel the confusion. If the confusion is so perpetual, you can't even feel it. You can't even know that you are confused. So they all come in little doses or little gaps. So in the gap, you realize, oh, I was confused or I'm in confusion. That is a clarity, see?
Yes.
If I say that, oh, I'm so confused, that means you have some clarity at least.
Right.
You realize what state you are in, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we cannot generalize and eternalize everything. Usually we say, generalize, I'm always like this, I'm always dull, and I'm always lazy. These are things that, we tend to see that way. But in reality, you simply have to take a little time for yourself to have the clarity dawn in you. I would say more than confusion today, people are in a state of uncertainty.
Yes.
Everything is uncertain. So the state of uncertainty causes more confusion in the mind about the choices.
What I was going to say about that was, I hope everybody can feel what I feel sitting really close to you, because energy is real. And when you're in the presence of somebody that has such peaceful energy or clarity, you tend to catch some of it. So like, as I'm sitting here listening, I'm finding myself like very at ease, very peaceful, very clear in what I'm thinking about and that I want to do. And I feel like that's almost like an energy frequency that you give off. And I guarantee you, everyone who's come in your presence feels this. It's just easier. It's easier.
We convey more through our vibrations than through our words. You may talk for hours, but then if the vibration doesn't convey, nothing gets conveyed. So one can stand and talk about love for 1 hour, but if they're not living it, if it's not coming in the vibrational level, you don't feel anything.
You're right.
But a puppy in your home, a dog in your house can make you feel that love in no time. A baby can make you feel that vibes, right?
Yeah, just their vibrational frequency, just their presence.
Yeah.
And you should ask yourself, everybody, I want you to talk about this too. When I'm around you, it makes me evaluate other people I'm around. And what energy do they give me? And, you know, I don't think people evaluate often enough the vibrational frequency they're getting from the people they surround themselves the most with. Do you believe there are toxic people? Do you believe there's toxic energy? Do you believe people should be more vigilant in their evaluation of the human beings they surround themselves with? What are your beliefs about that, your thoughts?
As I said, we are an energy field. Definitely,
Mm-hmm.
each other's energy affect us.
Mm-hmm.
Suppose someone is very angry and they're coming with those vibes, and then of course it affects you.
Mm-hmm.
Unless and until you are very well established in yourself, you're
Right.
very strong, you're very centered, then you take them all as kids.
Yeah.
See, like a school teacher,
Mm-hmm.
a nursery school class teacher, kindergarten teacher, she knows kids come with all different emotions.
Mm-hmm.
And even if they are jumping around, some is crying, some is yelling, some is angry, it doesn't affect the teacher
It's true. It's true.
because you have gone one step ahead to make yourself much stronger.
Mm.
So again, here breathing meditation, as if it is practiced regularly, will keep you in that state of positive energy. So the negative energy doesn't affect you that much as it would otherwise.
Maybe the best description I've heard of that is how you describe the 5 elements and then ending with light. Would you tell everybody about that? Because I think that light is energy, right? Can you tell them what the 5 elements are of?
See, we have earth, water, fire, air, ether. These are the elements.
Mm-hmm.
But one interesting thing, if you see, the lighter energy spreads more.
Spreads more.
The finer it is, it reaches more.
Mm.
So our mind is much lighter in the sense.
Mm.
In meditation, one can experience this. You cannot understand just as a concept,
Yeah.
but as an experience, you can get it if you sit with a teacher or learn or practice it. Then it's easy.
So let's talk about how that turnaround happens. So it ends up kind of going BK.
Yeah.
Real estate market takes a dump. Can't get your hands on some leverage anymore. So you're going to have to be in that process. But you'd already been remaking yourself, already changing.
Yeah.
Let's talk about some of those key things for people there's a lot of people that are watching this like, hey, I need to remake. Right? I'm at that point. I got to reboot. I got to shift some things. I need to take personal inventory. Both of you and I are meditators. Both you and I are people that really believe in energy. And so let's talk about just some of those key things that have worked for you, if you don't mind doing, okay?
Absolutely.
Talk a little bit about meditation, just that one topic alone, how that's impacted you and what you do with it.
For me, meditation's about, believe it or not, vibration.
Yep.
Everything
I believe it.
vibrates.
Yep.
Table, then plants, animals, humans, light, sound, and then thought. Do you know what thought vibrates the fastest? The truth.
The truth.
The truth vibrates the fastest.
Okay.
And so someone taught me, if I could teach you to meditate to increase your vibration so that you could live closer to your truth, meaning you can only be aware of that which vibrates equal to or less than you. So I'm going to teach you through meditation to vibrate faster.
Okay.
And so I learned theta meditation.
Okay.
The other key component of meditation that I found in people like you and I that are reactive, we're go-getters, is that I would waste so much energy reacting. And I ran into the Master Shaw, who gave me this.
Okay.
He's also a martial arts expert and master.
Okay.
And he could take all these guys around us, and they could all attack him at once. And I'm like, how do you react so quickly?
Yeah.
He says, oh no, I don't react quickly. I go back to center quickly.
It's good.
So, and that's what meditation truly does for me beyond the vibration, is every morning I have a center spot. So if something takes me off of that spot for the first 20 minutes a day,
Yes.
I don't worry about this. I worry about going back to here, and then this becomes an illusion.
Oh, I love that.
Because when you're at peace, all distractions, attacking thoughts, voids, shortages, obstacles are just illusions.
Yes.
Right? We live in the will of the universe. I live in the favor
That's
of
right.
the universe.
That's right.
And when I'm off center, I'm not in the favor of the universe anymore. So all I concentrate on And now, do I do that 100% of the time? No, you can
Nobody
call my
does.
wife, my
Right.
employees.
Right.
I just do it more and more
Right.
every single week, month, and year.
I want to stay on that for a second because a lot of times people that watch this too don't even really know what meditation means. They think, oh, does that conflict with my religion? It doesn't at all. Meditation it's not a religion. It's a way of emptying your mind to begin with, by the way. But you should learn about meditation regardless of what your religious beliefs are, in my opinion. Okay, I don't think it impacts your religion one way or the other. But you talk about those energies, and I heard you talking about one time about there's like 3 types of energies people live in. Do you remember talking about that?
Of course.
And this has a lot to do, I think, with how you turn things around and this energy that you describe. What are those 3 types of energy?
So the first type of energy is the world of not enough.
Yes.
And I've met so many people, even that have a lot. And these are like the billionaires that commit suicide. They live in a world of not enough. And so all you do is keep attracting not enough.
Yes.
Then there's the world of just enough. And I feel really frustrated for these people because no matter how hard they work, no matter what good intentions they have, they always live in a world of just enough. I just have enough. I just have enough. And then there's the greatest world of abundance, more than enough.
More than enough.
And when you live more than enough, you give freely.
You're right.
And you receive freely.
Yep.
Most people don't have a problem giving. Most people have a problem receiving. And it is a shift, and I think a conflict in most people's mind. And I'll tell you how I know it. You and I both get the blessing of speaking in front of thousands of people.
Right.
I love to ask this question. Who here likes to give? Everyone innately, they can't even hold their hand down.
Yeah.
Everyone raises their hand.
Yeah.
Then I ask real quickly, who here likes to receive? You get this energy.
Wow. You're
Some
right.
people won't even raise their hand,
Yeah.
but even the people that do, there's this hesitation which shows you energetically they have a problem with either not feeling worthy or not trusting the universe. They feel like, God, if I receive, I'm somehow cheating.
Yes.
Right? I'm not, like, there's this weird energy.
You're right.
So I help people a lot of times with living in a world of more than enough.
Yes.
That you actually, it's okay to receive because it creates the flow. You're emptying someone else's vessel.
That's right.
Right?
Right.
The way that you, by giving, should empty yours.
I so believe that. And that's this impediment in people's lives. They're unwilling to receive the great gifts of life to themselves. And you talk a lot about, I love this too, about outcome. So in that same vein as we go down here, people get confused by this with me all the time. I talk all the time about having goals. I think it's great to have goals, but I've been the most successful in my life where I've separated my addiction to the outcome. I was so addicted to outcomes all the time. And what it did is it tightened me. It frustrated me. It stressed me. It put undue pressure on me. So talk a little bit about how I think people think once I get somewhere, then I'll be happy. Once I get this big beach house, then I'll be happy. Once I get a boat, and I can tell you there are plenty of people that I live by right here that have these beach houses that still aren't happy, by the way. And I also have a whole bunch of people who don't have beach houses who live very blissfully. So I talk a lot about living in what I call like blissful dissatisfaction. What I mean by that is you could be dissatisfied and want more in your life, but there's no correlation with that with not being able to live happily and blissfully now. In other words, my bliss isn't attached to an outcome in my life, right? Can you talk about that from your perspective? So I think of anyone I've heard discuss this in the business space, because remember, this is someone who's on multiple occasions brought lots of abundance and wealth into his life over and over. Not just abundance, but created it for a lot of other athletes, a lot of other people around him, a lot of business partners. So he understands this principle. It's something you really need to listen to right here. So talk about that for a second.
This is a critical point because we're goal-oriented people.
Yes.
Right? We played sports. You know, it's all about winning.
Yep.
And so what I used to do is I'd attach, once I graduate high school, I'll be happy.
Yep.
If I get a scholarship to college, I graduate. All these, and every time it occurred, I still was in the same state of mind.
Yes.
What I learned to do was detach the happiness, this bliss, from the outcome. Now, the difference is most people get concerned like, well, how can you be motivated without an outcome? No. I have outcomes and I pray every morning. This is a truly abundant thing. My first prayer every morning is, may God put in front of me 10 people that I can help.
That you can help.
That's
that
all.
you can help.
That I can help. And I've shifted the paradigm of value, understanding outcomes and happiness. So I used to, and maybe you'll understand this, I'm a great salesman.
You are.
I can oversell, back end sell, and lie to you. I can cheat to you. I've done it when I was in my 20s. I would shade the truth. You know, I sold stuff.
Sure.
And it didn't make me feel good. And
Yeah.
what happened was I created a void for me to fill all the time. I'd make you promises, and I'd live on this premise, I'm going to exceed everybody's expectations. That's
Yeah.
my goal, right?
Yeah.
From the
Yes.
start. First of all, talk about bullshit.
Yes, right.
How many times have you actually,
Right.
in a business deal,
Right.
exceeded the other party's
Right.
expectation?
Right.
Very rarely.
Very rarely, especially if you've set those expectations artificially high.
Which I did.
Right. The way you exceed it is by not setting them.
Right. Right. By not charging or
Right,
selling it.
right.
And that's what I started
Right,
doing.
right.
But what was cool was I started with this prayer, and then I said, what if I started the day with this energy that God put a whole bag of $100 bills in front of me, and my job all day long was to trade $100 bills for 20. So whatever I did was I was going to provide value.
Yep.
As a father, as a husband,
Yep.
as a business partner, as a partner, as a philanthropist. And just, you'll see, I ask everyone either unconditionally, how can I be of service?
You do. You said it to me the first time we spoke.
How can I
Yep.
be of service? I mean it.
Yeah, I know you do.
And I know that that's my biggest blessing. I'm not lazy. I wake up at 4 a.m.
Yep.
I work really hard for
Yep.
others.
Yep.
But I also, when I work hard for others, I have my intention, my focus on what I want.
Yep, stay on that for a second. So
Yeah.
the power of what you're talking about for me is the intention part. So I want you to talk about intention, because the power of overpromising and knowing you're lying when you say it, you know your intentions weren't pure when you say it. There's a power to just knowing what your intent is. That $100, that give $100 to take $20 is an intention too, that I think gives you, I think it helps you, I want to get too technical everybody, but it actually helps you vibrate at a faster and higher level. Talk a little bit about the power of that intention there.
Yeah, well, I'm taught by Wayne Dyer.
Yep.
I think
Yep.
you study as
Yep.
well, Doctor.
Yep.
So there's a field of intention. And I have a kind of steroid version of what I learned from Dr. Dyer.
Okay.
And I believe that intention needs to be consistent every day.
Okay.
Persistent without fail, without quit, and enjoyed for the pursuit of your potential, a higher vibration or the truth. Let me put this into context. If, for example, I can give everyone a gift. Say thank you is the best intention that you can have. It gives you perspective, makes your past awesome, your present better, and your future brighter. 2 words, thank you.
Right.
So I tell people, make an intention of yours to be grateful. If you get stopped at a life, say thank you, because the universe is unraveling something and saving you,
Yes.
not slowing you down.
Oh, I love that.
Right? So
I need that one.
It's awesome.
Yeah, I love that.
And so I live in this intention. Now here's where you get, where people lose. Your body has cellular memory. Prove it. Your mind has neural pathways, and your DNA has a memory and an energy.
Yep.
That's your core energy. If you don't do something every day consistently, this is what happens. The power of intention has an accelerator of exponential results. Meaning, if I want to be grateful, I do it day 1, it's X to the first power. Day 2, to X to the second, X to the third, X to the fourth. Now I go get wasted, stay out all night, and I'm an egotistic narcissist who think of others. Now it's X to the 0 power. I've now zeroed out those other days. Now I start over.
Yeah.
What happens at the end of the month is I sit there and go, wow, I did this all month. This is the way the human mind works.
Yes.
And I'm like, why don't I get the results that Dave gets?
Yes.
Well, because you zeroed it out 3 nights.
Yep. Yep.
And I'm getting to the 31st power.
You're exactly right.
And it's the same thing why people, they're 99%ers. They don't realize how the body, mind, and soul works.
It exactly happens, by the way. The easiest place to see this is like with working out or diet, right? Those are the 2 of the easiest places. Don't you agree with that?
Well, and for me,
Yeah.
I'm living proof because
Okay.
I work out X to the 31st power. I
Okay.
do not, I'm gonna have to leave here at a certain time because I go to Stark and they're gonna train me.
There you go.
And I had to drop my ego to realize I need a trainer.
Yes.
Because I was
Yeah.
still stuck at 25.
Yep.
Doing chest drives back and by his legs
Right,
and shoulders.
right.
Well, for me, I travel so much.
Yeah.
I zeroed myself out.
Yeah.
2 days ago in New York.
There you go, right?
And
That's
I know it.
You know it.
And when I don't, I hold about 10 extra pounds right now.
Okay.
I'm good cardiovascular shape,
Yep.
but I'm carrying 10.
Carrying it.
But you know why?
Yeah.
Because every month I'm zeroing
You're
myself
zeroing it out.
just 2 or 3 days.
This is
I'm watching my diet.
Yeah, by the way, I love this. This is huge for people to get. It's like, because you meet people that go, I'm doing it all. I'm like, no, you're not. You're missing the 1%. That 1%, I love what you said, zeroes you back out.
It's a zero effect.
It's a zero factor, which also is important to know. That's why what you commit to doing needs to be something that's doable and consistent. People overpromise themselves. And the reason you lose self-confidence, I say all the time, is lack of self-confidence is the lack of keeping promises you make to yourself consistently, right? And it's because you overpromise yourself just like you overpromise the sales deal.
Yeah.
You're doing it to yourself.
Genius.
So you got to do the 30, whatever the workout is, select that you can do, whatever the diet is, or the phone calls are, or the meetings are. It's got to be something that stretches you, but that is actually doable that you can do consistent so you don't zero out. Love this.
Yeah, and the advice that I had was given to me while I went to the gym that I went to because I wasn't getting results, is they said, we're not going to give you anything to do that you won't do the rest of your life.
Perfect.
And it gave me shivers. I was like,
perfect. It makes my life easy, brother.
And when people tell you about these weird diets, don't you cringe?
I do. I'm like,
how are you going to do that?
You're never going to maintain that the rest of your life. Or people ask me, hey, you're in really good shape. Like, what do you do? Work out like 2 hours a day, 7 days a week? No, I do something I can actually do forever, right? You're 100% right. The other thing people do that I love that you talk about, I love this, by the way. I knew we were going to have more stuff than I can get in than I want, but I want to keep going.